Hey Matt, here is your natal chart reading. So let me share my screen and pull up the PowerPoint presentation. And before I get started, let me just say that the natal chart is potential. So things that are in the natal chart may not manifest, but a lot of what's in the natal chart will manifest. Also, just keep in mind that the natal chart deals with your entire life from start to finish. So some of what I mentioned may have yet to occur in your life. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to send me an email after this reading is complete. So reading is going to be in two parts. So part one is going to be houses 1 through 6. Part two will be houses 7 through 12. So let's get started. So here you are in all your splendor as a young boy. So I think this picture is so cute, which is why I wanted to use it. And here's your natal chart right here. As you can see, let me just get my little tool because I like to use it. As you can see, your ascendant is at the 24th degree of Capricorn, and that mirrors your birth number of 24, which is quite auspicious. You also have Neptune at the 24th degree, and also Chiron at the 24th degree. So you have a strong 24 number signature in your chart. And again, that reflects your birth number. 24 is one of the best numbers to be endowed with. So you are very blessed in that respect. All right, so we're just going to get into some of the general features of your chart. Oh, let me mouse. Okay. So, elements. In terms of elements, you have a dominance of earth energy, and that's that brown portion of this pie chart. So just looking at it visually, you'll see, that earth is really dominating your chart. And it makes sense because you have that Capricorn stellium. And then fire, fire is kind of moderate in your chart. Water is pretty strong in your chart, and then air is the least impactful in your chart. So you have the least amount of air. So air is rather lacking in terms of elements in your chart. Earth is the dominant element, then water, fire, and then air. So I actually like this combination in terms of career, especially dealing with your chart, because that will be basically the main theme of your life. So it helps to have all this earth energy. Not having a lot of air energy can make it hard for you to be social, can make it hard for you to relate to others at times. Communication could be problematic as well. Then for the modalities, you basically have a nice balance of modalities. So the green part of the pie chart is cardinal. So you have most of your planetary energy in cardinal signs. You can also include the points on the ascendant. And then fixed energy and mutable pretty much on an equal level. So I like this combination as well, having mostly cardinal energy and then having a nice blend of fixed and mutable energy. This is really going to help you to become successful. Then in terms of the houses, your angular houses are predominant. So the angular houses are houses 1, 4, 7, and 10. And those houses are very impactful, very dynamic, and a lot of people that have very interesting lives will have planets in angles. A lot of people that will make a difference in the world will have planets in angles. Next, we have succeedant. So you have a nice amount of planets in succeeding houses. Those are houses 2, 5, 8, and 11. And then you have the least amount of energy in the cadent houses. That's houses 3, 6, 9, and 12. So again, I like this blend right here, especially in terms of the angular houses. But having planets in angular houses can also be challenging as well. It can produce some serious life-altering events. Now, in terms of chart shape, you have a sling chart shape with Mars as the handle. So you could look at that from two perspectives. You could either look at that as Mars being isolated in your chart, because as you'll see with the picture representation of your chart, most of your planets are in the Eastern Hemisphere, but Mars is hanging out there in the Western Hemisphere. Chiron is not being counted in this case. The nodes aren't being counted as well. So you have that sling chart with most of your planets in the Eastern Hemisphere, Mars just hanging out there. So again, you could look at that as either Mars being isolated or Mars being the driving force for everything that's occurring in your life. The fact that Mars is the handle makes a lot of sense considering some of what you told me, especially in terms of your sex life, dealings with men. So here it is right here. Let me just show you what I'm talking about with the sling. So here's Mars right here. Mars is just hanging out there by itself. Again, when it comes to chart shapes, Chiron is not taken into account, or the nodes. So if you remove Chiron and the nodes, you would be able to see it more clearly, that sling chart shape. So you have a cluster of planets in the Eastern Hemisphere, and then Mars is just hanging out there in the West. And Mars is in your seventh house, and that's very indicative of some of the issues that you experience, again, especially with your love life and sex life. All right, so let's get into your chart. Let's get deep into it. The ascendant. Of course, the ascendant is very important in the chart. The ascendant is basically determining, it's found by looking at your date of birth and also the location of your birth. So the ascendant is at the 24th degree of Capricorn. Like I said, this is reflecting your birth number, which is quite auspicious. So 24 is one of the most fortunate degrees, but there are upsets that are present during the early part of life. The 24th degree is essentially love, money, and creativity, and it can really produce the good life. So you might have went through some struggles at the earlier part of your life, but as time goes on, the older you get, the more you could be living that good life. 24th degree of Capricorn in particular, managing, securing, or allocating funds for a company or organization. These are some of the possible manifestations that could come out of the 24th degree of Capricorn. A career or business that produces substantial financial rewards. So 24th degree is all about getting that money. Like it will bless you with a lot of money if you play your cards right. Relocating for better career opportunities, because 24 can manifest as a change in terms of home base. So 2 represents home, 4 is representing the change. And a lot of times it's going to be a drastic change. A relationship with an older man, because 24 deals with relationships and Capricorn deals with people who are older than you. So that's a possibility. Love relationship comes later in life because Capricorn deals with time, and Capricorn, in respect to certain situations, can be a late bloomer. Capricorn rising does not produce an easy life. I know all about this because I'm a Capricorn rising just like you, so I know how rough it can be. It can make you disciplined and conscientious, though. Also, it produces a solid work ethic and a high level of dedication. It can make you very loyal, and longevity rules. So the longer you know someone, the better. There is focus on becoming a significant player on the world stage. You are willing to work hard in order to make it to the top. Capricorn rising produces a serious, no-nonsense personality, reserved and professional. Reputation is very important. You may become indignant when it is in question. You carry yourself with an air of importance. You give off an authoritative vibe. You are prone to sarcasm and cynicism. You can become bitter and misanthropic as a Capricorn rising. Critical and hard-nosed persona. Dry sense of humor that could take some people who don't know you well by surprise. So that's one of the highlights of Capricorn. Capricorn can be quite funny, and usually the humor is dry and sarcastic. But yeah, you had me laughing when you sent me some of those emails, some of the way, like the way you were writing certain stuff, some of the ways you were expressing yourself. You had me cracking up. There's a tendency to display a mean or standoffish demeanor until you warm up to people. You could be largely distrusting of outsiders. You can be too hard on yourself. You are also not one to be complacent with mediocrity. Much time should be spent in solitude as a Capricorn rising. So you're going to need some quiet time. Also, as a Capricorn rising, there could be issues with noise. So, like, you could have nosy, why I say nosy? Noisy neighbors, or there could always be some noise outside that's disturbing your peace. Capricorn is the sign of silence. So there will be times where you just need some quiet time. So you have to take that into account when you get into a relationship, especially if you decide to get married or live with the person, because if they're one of those loud type of people, that can really wear on you after a while. Life, for the most part, may be about work, career, and responsibility, so it helps to love what you do. Prioritization is key when you're a Capricorn rising because time is often very important. Usefulness. So if somebody is not useful to you in some type of way, there's a high chance you're going to put them low on your priority list. Importance. So importance will be important, and of course, that's very much dealing with prioritization. So what really is important to you at any given time, that's what you're going to be putting the most focus on. And opportunity. Capricorn is always seeing opportunity, especially in terms of money. Like as a Capricorn rising, when I'm out and about, I might see, certain empty storefronts, and I'll be thinking about the opportunity that lies in that empty storefront. I could be like, oh, that could be a such and such store. Or if I see a new business open, then I'll be thinking about that opportunity and how the person is blessed, but how the store will probably close because they're not opening right. So you may do the same thing as a Capricorn rising. You may be seeing opportunity everywhere. You need to be recognized for what you do, and you have a need to be viewed as a VIP. Owning and operating a business is conducive to a Capricorn ascendant. The same is true for being in a high position in government or the public sector or the private sector, mind you. But the main thing is to be recognized for something that you do well. Capricorn rising needs recognition. Capricorn rising needs to feel that they are significant and that they are an integral part of the success of a company, or if they're running their own business. Capricorn is very much about that. As a young child, you may have been very shy. Even as an adult, shyness could be an occasional issue. Now, you can be extroverted when it comes to work, though, because again, as a Capricorn rising, I'll say 98% of your life is going to be about work. Opportunistic streak. So you could possess an opportunistic streak. You could have good skin and bone structure. That's some of the blessings that Capricorn rising can bestow upon you. Capricorn rising brings the risk of knee injuries and disorders, problems with your skin, teeth, and joints. So you could start off with beautiful skin and then end up with these skin problems. That's my issue. So as soon as like Pluto entered my first house, I started having issues with my skin. And I'm just so over it. But before that, I had like very beautiful skin. So with Pluto's actually right on your ascendant right now. So get back to me and let me know how that's affecting you. You could be going through a major transformation in terms of your life, in terms of your primary focus. Even on a physical level, you could be making some changes or undergoing some type of transformation, whether it's changing your hairstyle, changing how you dress. Maybe you might start working out. Depression, pessimism, feelings of inadequacy, and deprivation are major themes for Capricorn rising. So you already you mentioned the depression when you wrote me, and being a Capricorn rising, but you got a whole stellium in Capricorn. That explains the depression. So Capricorn is the sign of depression, so you're just naturally prone to it. Loneliness is another manifestation of Capricorn rising. Also, the single life. Don't be surprised if you're single for more years than being in a relationship. This is not true for all Capricorn risings, but for a lot of them, yes. Also, you may not be making yourself available to others a lot of times. So if you're complaining about being lonely and being single all the time, you need to take a look in the mirror, because more than likely you're doing it to yourself. Like I do it to myself, but I like being alone. But with you, you may not be so inclined, especially while you're still young, to appreciate being alone over being in a relationship. But the older you get, the more you might be like, you know what? I value my alone time. I need to be alone. And you might get to that point after being in a couple of really bad relationships. Here are some aspects. Well, here are the aspects involving your ascendant. So Neptune is right on your ascendant, both at the 24th degree. So again, that can be very auspicious, especially in terms of making money, especially the 24th degree of Capricorn. Now, the ascendant being conjoined to Neptune explains why you were born beyond the due date. Basically, what this is showing that you did not want to come out of the womb. You were you were basically sheltered in that womb. And it makes sense because you're a Pisces. Not saying that all Pisces are born later than the due date. Actually, my Pisces daughter was born a week after the due date. But then again, that due date is arbitrary because the doctor never knows for sure when that baby's coming. So while ascendant conjoined to Neptune can make you rather passive, because that's what it's basically dealing with. You were very passive and you were in that womb-like state, not just physically, but also you could say psychologically, mentally, you just didn't want to come out. Probably because your soul knew what you had to endure once you were born. Part of the reason for the fascination with ghosts, haunted houses, so that ascendant conjoined to Neptune can make you very much into the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, all that stuff. Ascendant being conjoined to Neptune also deals with you feeling like an outcast and an inability to fit in. So that could deal with in general. And then you also mentioned your family as well. And that 24, like I said, it can deal with challenges in the early part of your life. It can deal with feeling detached from your family, even because that 2 represents family and 4 is detachment. Can become jaded with the ordinary side of life. You are often in your own world with Neptune rising. Self-imposed isolation is a product of Neptune rising. Now, you did mention that you just have this strong love for history, certain historical eras, and the way you were writing about it, you were very romanticizing it. So, romantic, especially regarding history, the past, that's the Capricorn influence. Capricorn rules history. Capricorn, a lot of Capricorn individuals, they love history and they're very nostalgic. Now, Neptune rising can manifest as physical ailments, weakness, vulnerabilities. Neptune can weaken the body when it's in the first house, and especially when it's rising. Willing to assume a submissive role in a relationship. So you told me that, and that's because you have Neptune conjoined to your ascendant, and amongst other factors that causes you to want to assume a submissive role. Prone to victimhood status. Also, you got to watch for the tendency to engage in self-pity. Also, you got to watch for the tendency to deflect blame onto others. Venus is conjoined to your ascendant, but it's in the 12th house. So with this puts you in touch with your feminine side, and you mentioned that you are very much in touch with your feminine side. And because Venus is on the ascendant, you will definitely display some feminine characteristics. Very guarded yet receptive when necessary. Very focused on achieving material success, especially because this conjunction is in Capricorn. Sensitive to people's energy, your equilibrium can easily be thrown off. A professional title that's related to finance. Now, Venus on the ascendant can produce a strong interest in art and music, especially since it's in the 12th house. Also, the whole photography that you're interested in, dealing with the old photos. I think I do have that in here. Earning potential is contingent upon where you live, and that's because Venus is ruling the 4th house. This puts you at risk of allowing a partner or a spouse to control too much of your life when Venus is right on the ascendant, or you could identify with the relationship itself, which is never a good thing because that can give you excuses for staying in the relationship. And then breakups can be particularly hard when you're identifying with the relationship itself. You might be too submissive in a relationship. You might allow a partner to wield too much control over your life. Uranus is also conjoined to the ascendant. It's in the 1st house. So this can produce a feeling of being alienated or where you alienate yourself. It produces an avid interest in astrology in some cases. So in your case, that's definitely true. Highly intuitive, and highly intuitive in terms of the body too. So when you're picking up on certain frequencies or thoughts of people and stuff like that, your body could start to react in certain ways. A high degree of personal magnetism. Body undergoes drastic changes. In your case, it was drastic weight loss. And that's very Uranus and Capricorn conjoined to the ascendant, because Capricorn will take weight off of you. Capricorn can produce that gaunt look where you look like you're starving, but Capricorn is a sign of starvation, period. An inability to feel settled. Also, this means that you're not built for an ordinary life. Also, this points to being bullied, being your own best friend, or this can translate into friends who try to be an authority over you, and the authority part is coming in with the Capricorn influence. Also, you could attract opportunistic friends because Uranus is in Capricorn. This explains your ambition to transition into the field of human resources because Uranus rules human resources. And with Uranus in Capricorn, that can make you a human resource manager, be at the top level in terms of human resources. So when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah. I was like, he knows what he's doing. Ascendant trine Chiron. I really like this aspect right here. So with this, you could be very much about healing yourself. So heal thyself. Also, this can point to being healed of an ailment. The surgery that you spoke of, Chiron's in the 8th house. 8th house deals with surgery. And just in the general sense, surgery that corrects a blockage or restriction, because the Capricorn influence is a blockage or restriction. Working within the insurance industry and getting promoted through the ranks quickly, like you told me. And that's because Chiron's in the 8th house. 8th house rules insurance. Now, this can result in having a good credit history. Also, beneficial therapy sessions. So if you haven't entered therapy yet, you might end up entering therapy at some point in the future. A fulfilling sex life comes later in life, and that's because you're a Capricorn rising. This can also manifest as sexual healing because of Chiron being in the 8th house. Finding a sex partner at work. because Chiron's in Virgo. Excellence. So you could be very much about demonstrating excellence. Also, being very organized and meticulous in your work, being very thorough, being good with figures and accounting. This also makes you a great researcher because Chiron's in the 8th house, and also a natural at investigative work because of that 8th house placement of Chiron. Incorporating occult rituals in your regular routine as a way to become more successful and achieve your ambitions, that's a way you can channel this energy. That's a way you can, bring it up a few notches. Because the thing with trines is, trines can deal with things that come naturally to you, like easily to you, and they can deal with natural skills and talents and gifts. However, trines can also be boosted in terms of the energy that you're putting into that trine. So you can always make your trines work even more so for yourself, or work even harder for yourself. And this is one way you could do that. Receiving help from practitioners of the occult. Ascendant conjunct Peacock. So Peacock is a fixed star that deals with vanity and love of display. And also it can deal with having a long life, and you can achieve some level of fame with this. So you did mention, would you live a long life? So this is one of the aspects that can contribute to a long life. So that should make you feel good. But you do have some factors in your chart that could threaten your life, and you've already been through it with the illness that you suffered early on in life. There's one aspect in particular that could cut your life short if you're not careful, but it's more so going to be, again, if you're not being careful, but I'll get into that a little later. But here's your chart again. Here's your ascendant 24th degree. Here's Venus. Let me just get my little drawing tool just to show you the things that I covered already. So here's that stellium in Capricorn, Venus, Ascendant, Neptune, and Uranus. Here is the trine that I was speaking about, Chiron trine Ascendant. So that's one of your strongest aspects right there. That aspect will keep you employed. It will also keep money in your pocket. It can make you very good with managing finances of a company. So you may want to take that in consideration when it comes to job-related skills. All right, moving along. Let me clear this. Now, Saturn is your chart ruler because you're a Capricorn rising. So just like Capricorn rising, having Saturn as your chart ruler is not easy. Again, your life is going to be centered around work for the most part. And you could say that about a lot of people, but it's really, really true with Capricorn rising, having Saturn as your chart ruler. I'm a perfect example of that. I am always working, but I love work. I'd rather be working than just sitting somewhere and vegging out in front of a TV. So Saturn is your chart ruler. Saturn's in Pisces and it's occupying the 2nd house. Saturn is at the 13th degree of Pisces. That 13 is the degree of death. Now, the death could be literal or symbolic. The fact that you asked about where you're going to live a long life very much is dealing with this Saturn at the 13th degree of Pisces. You may have even felt that you were going to die at an early age at some point in your life. You still may feel that way because that 13 is very strong in terms of the death theme. So 13 can also produce disruptions. It's a degree of transition, which is essentially what death is about. Drastic change, upheavals, rebellion, instability, friendships, and association. The 13th degree of Pisces in particular, here are some of the possible manifestations and some of what you have told me I might confirm through here. I can't remember though. Yeah, so here it is, a life-threatening illness. So you've already had that. And we're going to get into the details of that a little bit later. So 13th degree of Pisces can manifest as a life-threatening illness. It's good for a career within the HR department. So you going back to school to study human resources is right on point, especially with Saturn at the 13th degree. That 13 is dealing with the human resources. I put nonprofit organization because of the Pisces influence. Abstract art, so you could have a strong liking towards abstract art. Selfless friends with Saturn at the 13th degree of Pisces, because that 13 is representing friendships. But you could also attract some shady friends into your life as well. Dreams about death. So let me know if you have dreams about death. You could also have reoccurring dreams about death because of this Pisces influence. So let me know if that's the case. Like you could dream about a death of someone that you know before they actually died. Now, with Saturn in the second house, financial security is a chief ambition. Saturn in the second house brings an inclination towards materialism, so there's a need to avoid the temptation to place money over matters of the heart. Saturn in Pisces helps to combat this tendency, though. There's a tendency towards avarice and miserliness, but not so much with Saturn in Pisces. You could be secretive regarding the amount of money you earn and have, however, because Pisces is about secrets. Money is earned the tried and true way when Saturn is in the second house, or it should be. But Saturn in Pisces can make it tempting to take shortcuts at times. A second house Saturn is not conducive to shortcuts or overnight success, but again, sometimes you may feel it necessary to do so. Saturn in Pisces brings the need to be charitable with your money when it's in the second house. And this placement of Saturn will teach you the value of hard work, discipline, and dedication. But with Saturn in Pisces, you could lose momentum at times. You could get burnt out and need an escape from time to time. Being reckless in your spending will result in hard lessons in financial responsibility with Saturn being in your second house. Peace and security are often the missing element, can produce a rigid value system, but the Pisces influence can make you more malleable. Saturn in the second house can manifest as values that are outmoded. It's a product of the South Node, really, of the Taurus South Node. Saturn in Pisces will force you to become more lax in terms of values and standards. Saturn in Pisces will force you to become more compassionate and understanding. Now, Saturn in the second house can make it hard to change with the times and accept people where they're at. Also, accept people where they're at, not where you feel they should be. So Saturn in the second house, that explains your love for history, the value placed upon history, but it can also make it hard to change with the time. You may hold people to an unrealistic standard. You are easily disappointed as a result, and that's because Saturn's in Pisces in the second. And food could be an issue, as is true in your case because you have Crohn's disease. Now, let me know if you still deal with the symptoms of Crohn's disease or if that surgery totally corrected it. Because I don't think you mentioned that part, if the surgery totally corrected it, or if you still experience issues where you have to restrict your eating, where your eating is restricted or where you can't eat certain foods. But Saturn in the second house can deal with where you are restricted in terms of what you eat. Saturn in Pisces produces a life that is full of hard lessons in the areas of compassion, empathy, and sacrifice. So you might have to make some financial sacrifices from time to time with Saturn in Pisces in the second house. It also brings a need to develop spiritual understanding to make sense of the karmic-induced challenges that befall you. Karmic-induced challenges in the area of money and possessions, and this reinforces the themes of the Taurus South Node. Also, Saturn in Pisces can manifest as paranormal activity due to a need to experience more than what this material world has to offer. A high value is placed upon the spiritual and paranormal due to Saturn being in the second house. Now, you might even have considered buying some of those items that are haunted. I don't know if you ever heard of those, but like There's rings that you can buy that have jinns attached to them and stuff like that. You might have like learned about that and was kind of interested in that. If you are, just be very careful with what's in your chart, especially with Saturn being in your second house. Because that, with Saturn and Pisces in the second house, that can deal with where you have an item that is haunted. Now, this item could come to you from somebody that you know, like, let's say that your father, when your father passes on, you end up keeping some of his items. Well, those items could be haunted. Saturn represents that which is lacking, and when Saturn is in Pisces, discernment between that which is real versus fake is often lacking. Saturn in Pisces makes it easy to be duped. Thus, it's important to fact check and demand that outlandish claims be substantiated. And because you're a Pisces sun as well, Pisces is just easily duped. Not saying that that's always going to be the case in your life, but there could be times where you are, taken advantage of. Now, with Saturn and Pisces in the second house, you could be scammed or conned out of money, just like how I was saying. Being a victim of theft is also possible. You may have some thieving tendencies with Pisces in the second. If you were to steal something with Saturn and Pisces in the second, you would probably get caught. Maybe not the first time, but if you were doing it habitually, you would eventually get caught because of Saturn's influence. Now, I'm not calling you a thief, but on occasion, you may have thought about, taking advantage of that 5-finger discount. Self-sufficiency tends to be lacking when Saturn is in Pisces. Now, I'm not saying that, this is the case with you, especially because you're a Capricorn rising. Now, there is also the tendency to shirk responsibility and to shift blame onto others. Personal accountability could be lacking when Saturn is in Pisces. Now, if you are not like this could pertain to your father. And you did mention some things about him. So it seems like Saturn and Pisces on the negative end fits your father more than yourself. But some of the negative manifestations of Saturn and Pisces will still apply to you. Now, Saturn and Pisces can manifest as serious illness or disability. It can represent a weakened immune system. Saturn and Pisces can produce problems with the feet. Your feet are directly linked to your karmic debt. So you need to keep your feet in good condition. Get pedicures and stuff, or do, your own pedicures. Soak your feet every now and then, especially if you have a buildup of dry skin. Dry skin on the feet could be very Saturn and Pisces. Saturn and Pisces can also manifest as a disorder of the lymphatic system. It produces a high sensitivity to chemicals, dyes, and certain fragrances. Skin disorders such as eczema and psoriasis are common manifestations of Saturn and Pisces. Freedom is lacking or it can be threatened when Saturn is in Pisces. Imprisonment, institutionalization, and hospitalizations are keywords for Saturn and Pisces. You're already familiar with the hospitalization part. Isolation is another. Saturn and Pisces will bring hard lessons involving addiction, passivity, and dishonesty. Your karma is swift and heavy. Here are aspects involving Saturn. So Saturn is squaring your Jupiter. Saturn's in Pisces, and it's squaring Jupiter in Sagittarius, so that is a mutable square. You have more flexibility with a mutable square than a fixed square or even a cardinal square. So that can be, it could be less tragic or less problematic. So Saturn square Jupiter, it can make it hard to remain optimistic and take leaps of faith. You could be around killjoys, naysayers, and hecklers quite a bit. Tests of your generosity are a product of this aspect. The overdose of Tylenol as a result of your father's influence that you mentioned. The morbidly obese louse of a father. This cracked me up when you said that, but this is very much dealing with Saturn square Jupiter. The obesity is coming from Jupiter and Sagittarius influence. You calling him a louse is very much dealing with him just you having that Saturn and Pisces. Also, this can produce distance involving father, whether it's emotional distance or physical, and the money issues surrounding your father as well. So Yeah, when I read this line, the morbidly obese, loss of a father, I couldn't help but to laugh. And this is what I'm talking about your dry sense of humor. Work can build up and become overwhelming, working overtime, having little freedom. So working now, like maybe not now because of this current crisis, but the further you go up the ranks, the less personal time you could have, the more you might be working overtime, feel overworked. This can result in having a lot on your plate. You could be overwhelmed at times. Time management can be a problem. This can produce issues with procrastination from the Jupiter influence. Also, you could have a disdain for organized religion. This aspect makes me think of Jesus versus the Pharisees. So Jesus would be represented by Saturn and Pisces, and the Pharisees would be represented by Jupiter and Sagittarius, representing that organized religion. So you might see your father as a hypocrite if he's religious. Also, this could manifest as a blood-borne illness because Sagittarius and Jupiter rules the blood. Saturn is in semi-square with Uranus. This can represent your father, who you said was cold, mean, and detached. Challenges with achieving longevity with friendships. Theft at the hands of a friend because Saturn's in Pisces. A sudden loss of income is possible. Inability to eat due to illness resulting in drastic weight loss. So this is one of the aspects that resulted in the drastic weight loss due to the issues with not being able to keep down food. You could have weak knees or weak bones in general, and this could be a result of the malnutrition that you experience as a result of the Crohn's disease. Also, this can produce a skin condition of the feet, and that's because Uranus is in Capricorn. This can also manifest as dehydration. Saturn is in trine with the midheaven, which is one of your most fortunate aspects. So really use this one to your advantage. So with Saturn trine midheaven, it's easy to move up the corporate ladder. It's easy to gain respect and recognition from your superiors. Also, this points to you being charitable towards your mother because the midheaven is ruling your mother. It's good for owning and operating a business, especially in terms of the arts, healing, or spiritual fields. It's ideal for working within nonprofit organizations. I keep driving this nonprofit home because of that Pisces influence. Pisces rules nonprofit. Great for working within fields that require investigations and the detection of lies and secrets. And that's because your midheaven's in Scorpio and Saturn's in Pisces. Representative of working within the insurance industry, that's because of the Scorpio midheaven, especially on the loss claim end. And you mentioned you were now doing subrogations. Now, when I read that word, I didn't even know what that word meant until I had to deal with my own insurance company. And I'm still waiting to receive my deductible back because I'm going through a subrogation process, as I told you in the email. So when I see that word subrogation, I get triggered. All right, back to you. Okay, so working in the insurance industry on the loss claim end, because Pisces rules loss, and it's in the second house. So that's very apropos to what you're currently doing. Possible inheritance from your father. So I know you mentioned the issue with your father not being good with money, but you never know. He might have some hidden money somewhere with that Saturn and Pisces in the second. And when he passes on, that money might be passed on to you. So you never know. Paying for a nursing home for your mother when she becomes old and feeble, that could be a possible manifestation of Saturn trine midheaven. And you could be helping her out financially from time to time, especially, the more money you start making, you might just be sending her a check every month. Saturn is opposing the Arabic part of merchandise. So this makes me think of how Saturn in Pisces can produce a tendency to want to take what is not yours. So at some point you might have stole something, maybe around the age of 18 or at the age of 18, because Saturn, why did I say 18? I mean 13. Sorry about that. Because Saturn is at the 13th degree of Pisces. So let me know if you did steal something out of a store one day. Now, your father could have had a problem with stealing, and maybe this is something you don't know about him. Problems with companies over merchandise that you purchase, issues with getting a refund, not receiving your order in a timely fashion. So you might encounter some problems making purchases with this opposition right here. Now, Neptune is in the first house, it's in Capricorn. So, like I said before, Neptune's at the 24th degree of Capricorn, just like your ascendant, and this is representing your birth number. That 24th degree, I can't say it enough. Now, it may not produce a life that is devoid of any challenges, and that's true for anybody's life. Nobody gets off of this planet without experiencing some type of misfortune or challenge. But I can't say this enough about how that 24 can make you very blessed in certain respects. And in life in general, especially on a material level. Now, Neptune in the first can produce a natural inclination towards selflessness. And it's akin to being a chameleon where you assume different roles and identities. It produces a very fluid persona. Also, Neptune in the first house is indicative of lacking a strong sense of self, and that very much can also be related to having that seventh house Mars, which we'll be getting into. Now, at times you may feel lost or that you lack grounding. Capricorn helps to keep you grounded. Life may sometimes feel like a lucid dream. Also, Neptune in the first can produce a haunted individual, meaning that a spirit or angelic being is always at your side. So you may be haunted. A natural inclination to operate behind the scenes, reclusive tendencies, issues with establishing firm boundaries with people. Now, the fact that Neptune is in Capricorn is going to help with that because Capricorn doesn't have any problem saying no or saying stop. So if Neptune was like in Sagittarius or if Neptune was in Scorpio, you would really have a problem with establishing boundaries. But Neptune being in Capricorn really helps you out in this situation. Now, it will be easy to become a passive participant in this game called life. Self-denigration could be an issue as well. Now, you may not be a passive participant when it comes to career because Neptune's in Capricorn, but you could be a passive participant when it comes to your personal life. Neptune in the first house can cause you to play the role of the martyr at various times in your life. It can also cause you to approach life from a victimhood standpoint, which can only lead to further victimization. Isolation is a major theme of Neptune when it's in the first house. Escapism is another. Neptune, when occupying the first house, can be hard on the body. Like I said, when I was talking about Neptune on the ascendant, for one, it can produce weight problems. And in your case, it resulted in you being very skinny because of your health condition, and that's due to the Capricorn influence. It can also result in a compromised immune system due to an issue with the lymphatic system. Water retention could be a problem as well as edema at some point. You could actually end up getting water on the knee because Neptune's in Capricorn. Dehydration due to the Capricorn influence is possible as well. You may suffer from dizziness at times. Numbness could be an issue at times as well. Now, about that dizziness, if you were vomiting all the time, like you said you were, I know you were vomiting all the time. I don't want to make it seem like I don't believe you. So vomiting all the time, you know how you're about to vomit and you get that dizziness feeling? So that is very much related to Neptune in your first house. But there could have been times where you felt dizzy and lightheaded simply because you had an empty stomach. Numbness could be an issue at times as well. Also, this brings a high chance of injuries and disorders of the feet. And Neptune in the first can also produce sleep disorders. Neptune and Capricorn in the first can manifest as weak knees, weak teeth, oily skin. Venus conjoined to Neptune. Now, this produces a strong inclination towards art, music, and jazz, a strong appreciation for it. It can also make you quite charitable. It's good for volunteering, especially because Venus is in the 12th house. It can make you quite empathic. Also, you could be a collector of antiques. This points to you being a lover of old photographs, black and white photos, photos of certain historical eras. Also, this makes you very romantic and nostalgic. It produces a strong affinity with the spiritual and paranormal. Spiritual makes you very spiritual in terms of just how you live your life. And also, this can deal with you going to psychic advisors. Secret relationships are a manifestation of Venus conjoined to Neptune. Also, you fantasizing about a celebrity. And this makes me think of that one guy you mentioned. I forget his name though. A relationship could be more fantasy than it is reality. Also, this is a millionaire aspect. Gotta give you some applause for that. Man, let me tell you, if I had that aspect in my chart, look, I'd already be rolling in the dough. I would have won a lottery jackpot by now, but that's neither here nor there. But work that aspect to your benefit because you could become a millionaire one day. Also, this could translate into cryptocurrency. Also, with Venus conjoined to Neptune, fully merging with a partner until the individual self no longer remains is a possible manifestation. So you always got to be careful of that. Also, you can attract partners who have addictive tendencies, especially with Venus being in the 12th house. And they could just come with sob stories. Lies and deception could plague a relationship. Also, you could attract moochers, cons, thieves, and cheats. Partner could use you as a means of escape. Also, this produces a strong spiritual and psychic connection in terms of your partner. Dreams about a partner could happen. Like if your partner is about to cheat on you, you might have a dream about him. Partner could be like a drug, or you could be under a partner's spell, literal or figuratively. Also, this can produce a liking to fragrances, colognes, incense, essential oils, and magical herbs. Uranus is conjoined to Neptune, which makes you a Nepturanian, which is a term I have coined to describe individuals that were born in the late 80s to like 1996. So you are of that Nepturanian class of individuals. So as a Nepturanian, you've been born with a special mission. Now, it may take you a while for you to determine what that special mission is, but it might also lead to special challenges as well. As you already found out, early part of your life, you were suffering from Crohn's disease, and that makes a lot of sense with Uranus and Neptune being in your first house. So as a Nepturanian, your special challenges are very much dealing with your physical body, but also in terms of how you present yourself, in terms of how you view the world and how you connect with people. Part of the reason why some people thought you were autistic. So that Uranus Neptune conjunction can make you a little zigzag. Okay, I have to explain myself when I say zigzag. So, I had to add some humor into this. So, zigzag comes from this movie that featured John Leguizamo. I don't know if you ever saw this movie, but and Wesley Snipes was in it too. So the movie was called Zigzag because that was the name of this boy, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. But I used to tease my oldest daughter because she would just act really stupid and goofy at times. And let me just go back to the premise of the movie. So the movie was about this boy, and he either was autistic or had some type of problem. But whenever like he would get mad or he would be riding his bike, his head would just be moving back and forth, and he'd be like acting all, that's why he was called Zigzag, because he couldn't stop the way his head was moving. So he came across as being rather autistic. And so I'm not making fun of autistic people, but I'm just giving you a point why I'm calling it zigzag. Because so when my daughter would act stupid sometimes and real goofy, I would be like, oh no, here come the zigzag. I was like, don't get zigzag on me. And she would start cracking up because we would crack up at this movie. So anyway, that's why I said zigzag. So yeah, this could that and basically that Nepturanian generation, or not really a generation because it's a shorter time period, but you could say the Nepturanians, they could display some zigzag characteristics. And with you having this conjunction in your first house, you could display some zigzag traits, maybe not now, but when you were younger. And this could have been part of the reason why people thought that you were autistic. You mentioned the fact about being withdrawn, and that's part of this conjunction as well. Also, this can cause you to come across as weird, strange, aloof, or zigzag, socially awkward, spiritual awakening, ancient aliens. When I see this in your first house, it just makes me think of that show, Ancient Aliens, and just how you might have studied, ancient aliens like the Anunnaki and stuff like that. So you might be up on that. And this conjunction in the first house can make you feel like you just don't really belong on this earth. It's good for earning money as a human resources manager, especially of a nonprofit or medical facility. Neptune does rule the second. Chiron is in trine to Neptune, so this is another aspect I really, really like in your chart. It's really beneficial. Earning money through working within the insurance industry. Neptune rules the second, Chiron's in the eighth. Second house is money. Eighth house is insurance. And with this Chiron influence, this is you getting like perks through working within the insurance industry, like getting discount insurance and stuff like that, and whatever else they have to offer. This can also manifest as a great benefits package. Good for managing big budgets in terms of your line of work. So if you don't want to continue on with the insurance industry, which you basically imply because you want to move towards human resources, managing a payroll budget, that could be very much Chiron trine Neptune when you move over to the human resources end. Good for fundraising, receiving donations. Successful medical treatment. This makes me think of that surgical procedure you had that helped to ease or alleviate the symptoms of Crohn's disease. Miraculous healing, spiritual cleansing. So you might decide to go through a spiritual cleansing if you haven't already at some point. Spiritual training. So you might undergo some type of spiritual training at some point in the occult because Chiron's in the eighth house. And the Virgo influence deals with the training part. Neptune is running contraparallel to Cupido. Now, the contraparallel aspect, it's kind of operating like an opposition. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my phone, but oh well. It's kind of operating like an opposition. So this can produce problems with a love affair, a lover, a relationship. This can result in being in bondage to a partner or where you feel trapped. You could be dealing with a liar, a cheat, or addict. Neptune is conjoined to the fixed star Peacock because remember, the Ascendant was conjoined to Peacock as well. So the same themes of Peacock are resurfacing: vanity, love of display, and also fame. And it can contribute to a long life. Uranus in the first house in Capricorn. So now we move on to your Uranus. Uranus is at the 28th degree of Capricorn in the first house. So the 28th degree of Capricorn in particular can manifest as substantial gains through your friendships and associations that are formed in the workplace, in particular because of Capricorn influence. Big come-ups in terms of profession. That 28 is a come-up number. 28th degree is a come-up degree. Friends and associates can contribute to your downfall, however, if you're not careful. Also, the 28th degree is called the trusting lamb. And as a result, you could be too trusting in some cases, and this could bring some backstabbers in the workplace. Cycles of ups and downs involving men, love, romance, sex, children, but this can also manifest as cycles of ups and downs involving your career as well. Now, Uranus in the first house will bring many changes of perspective, and it will require you to adjust your approach. A key theme of the first house, Uranus, is depersonalization. So there's a tendency to put the needs of a group or collective ahead of your own. You desire to be a part of something that is larger than yourself. You are more inclined to place more priority on the cause than the individual. Uranus in the first house means that you are very group oriented, yet you also possess a strong independent streak. The whole group oriented part makes me think of like when I go live, you're often in the chat, and I really appreciate that. Matt B's YouTube name is Erudite, so I forget what the rest of it says, but yeah. So that's very that's the group oriented part. So you, while you may not be group oriented in the physical sense, you might be group oriented online. But with Uranus in the first, you also possess a strong independent streak. Uranus in the first produces a high degree of magnetic attraction, and it produces a magnetic personality. So you'll have some people that are just drawn to you, and it'll be where you draw the right people to you that can help you out. People with Uranus in the first house often get the hookup, so to speak. This means that they are often in a position to receive special privileges, perks, and freebies, and you may be no exception to the rule. Friends will help to make your life easier unless Uranus is badly afflicted, and Uranus really isn't badly afflicted too much. Uranus in the first house means that you try to make life as convenient as possible. Now, there will be times in your life where you will be subject to a great deal of uncertainty and unpredictability. So that makes me think of the Crohn's disease. Sudden and unexpected change is what Uranus brings. Your life will be filled with unique experiences. And with Uranus in the first, you just can't live an ordinary life. It's just not really possible. Now, Uranus in the first can manifest as an official or unofficial name change. It could also result in a hyphenated name, or perhaps you prefer to go by an abbreviated version of your name. The use of a nickname is another manifestation of Uranus in the first house. Uranus rules intercepted Aquarius in the first, so that is explaining the 3 names you gave me. So your legal birth name, also you gave me a Facebook name and your YouTube name. So that's very much dealing with Uranus being in the first house and how it's ruling intercepted Aquarius in the first. Uranus in the first house can produce a high-strung personality. It can also manifest as a high susceptibility to disorders of the nervous system. It will be easy to sustain injuries to the ankles, shins, and calves. Your circulatory system is also vulnerable to disorders. There's a chance that you could develop an issue with your veins or arteries at some point. So Uranus is conjoined to Venus. This can produce alternative unions. Now, Uranus is conjoined to Venus, but keep in mind that Neptune is in between Uranus and Venus. So this conjunction may not be as impactful as it is if you didn't have Neptune in the middle of these 2 planets. So alternative unions can be a product of Uranus conjoined to Venus. Friends with benefit situations, money magnet. So this is one of the best aspects to have in terms of money. Now, while it can produce fluctuations in income, it can manifest as sudden interruptions in income. It can also manifest as a money magnet. So where money easily comes to you at various times, especially when you really need it. So for instance, let's say that you own a home and you got to replace the roof on your home, which is very likely in your case. And you're like, damn, um, I'm hurting for money. And then your intuition tells you, go ahead and buy a lottery ticket. Well, you're the type of person that will win that lottery. Maybe not the jackpot, but maybe you will win like $2,000, $5,000 just on a whim because you got that Venus conjoined to Uranus. So that's another aspect. I have this aspect too. What am I talking about? And I'm still waiting to win the lottery. But no, I've had some situations where money has come to me quite easily, where it just falls into my lap. So I do have that money magnet thing going on a little bit, just a little bit. My Venus and Uranus are pretty far apart, but it's still a conjunction. So, like I said, in your case, the money magnet theme may not be as strong as it is if Uranus was right on, Venus was right on Uranus, because Neptune is in between. But even that, that's like money magnet combined with money magic. Like, can you really go wrong with that? If you play your cards right, that's what I'm saying. Now, financial independence is a manifestation of Uranus conjoining Venus. Astrological advice, because Venus rules advice and Uranus rules astrology. Also, this can manifest as you having a unique style. Also, this can point to being active on social media. Also, it could bring an opportunity to earn money online and where you have an online business because of the Capricorn influence. And the online part is the Uranus influence. Uranus is in semi-square with Jupiter. A friend could take advantage of your generosity. There's a possibility of problems with walking due to an ankle injury, possible interruption in your college education, ethical concerns with respect to career within human resources. Let me just stop here. We're going to spend a lot of time on your first house because that's where most of your energy is concentrated. So if it seems like it's like taking a long time to get through this first house, it is. But once we get past the first house, things are going to just move much quicker. But yeah, that first house, that energy that, you might as well say Venus is damn near in your first house too, but it is in the 12th, but it's 2 degrees away from your ascendant. So we got Venus hovering over your ascendant. We got Neptune, Uranus. Then we're going to be moving over into Mercury and then the sun. So all of that's in your first house. So if it seems like we're spending a lot of time on your first house, that's the reason why. Ethical concerns with respect to career within human resources. Basically, your whole life is that first house. Let's be real. Except for that 7th house Mars. So remember, that Mars is the handle to the Sling chart shape of your chart. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, Uranus semi-square Jupiter can manifest as an overtaxed nervous system. Also, procrastination with respect to achievement of goals. You could lose a lot of weight in a short period of time, which exactly is what happened to you. A lot theme is that Jupiter in Sagittarius, and then the weight loss is the Uranus in Capricorn in the first. Uranus is in sextile to Pluto. This can manifest as the opening of your third eye. It's good for human resource management, which you're headed towards. So if you have any doubts about being a human resource manager, this is one of the aspects that should give you more confidence in that area, should help you to make up your mind. And I remember looking up the salary range of a human resource manager. They make bank. So if you're really about making as much money as possible, dealing with your skill set, human resource management is the way to go. And I don't think those jobs are that damn stressful either. Except for when they probably had, those employee grievances and stuff. You might have to deal with the employee grievances as well with this Uranus sextile Pluto, but you could be really good with it as a human resource manager. This is also good for working within the insurance industry, even though you don't plan on staying in that industry. And I don't recommend you plan on staying in. I don't recommend that you stay in that industry for various reasons, which I'll get into later on. Perks, privileges, bonuses, commissions through this aspect. Being part of an influential network of professionals. Friends with benefit situation begins at work. That's possible. Beneficial friendships and associations, friends who are supportive. Using the internet for research, using certain databases for uncovering information. Also, the use of astrology as a psychoanalytical tool. And this is basically about knowing thyself through astrology or other forms of metaphysics. Uranus is in trine to Chiron. So as you can see already, Chiron is trining your Capricorn stellium. And that is very advantageous, especially for work and career, making money, producing exceptional work, being given preferential treatment at work, being a licensed professional, joining a labor or trade union, severance pay. So there could be a time where you lose a job through no fault of your own and you're given severance pay. Alternative healing methods. And Uranus is running parallel to the fixed star Polis, and Polis deals with martial desires, high ambitions, domination, keen perception, success, truthfulness, spiritual power, and horsemanship. So with this, you could have an affinity with horses. Also, some of what is written could apply to a friend that you have or an associate because of Uranus influence. Now, let's move on to Mercury. So Mercury is in Aquarius in the first house. And if you notice, Aquarius is intercepted in your first house, like I said. So that Aquarius energy is very impactful and significant in your life for good and for bad. So intercepted signs are basically placing much focus on those themes that the sign represents. So it can even cause you to be a bit detached from the whole human experience at times because it's in your first house. It can also cause you to be rather awkward in some ways. It can also cause you to feel alienated. Now, Mercury is at the 8th degree of Aquarius in the first house. I feel that it always helps to have planets in those intercepted signs instead of having just an intercepted sign where there's no planet in there to anchor that energy. Like when you have a planet in an intercepted sign, it gives more purpose to that sign. It basically enables that energy to be channeled constructively in certain ways. In other ways, it could be problematic. But I would prefer a planet to be in an intercepted sign than just having a sign intercepted where there's no planet in there. Because you could look at that planet as like an anchoring force. So Mercury at the 8th degree of Aquarius, the 8th degree of Aquarius can manifest in a number of ways, such as having a cold and detached father, which you mentioned. And basically because Mercury is involved, it shows that this affected your mindset and mental health. Unexpected changes with respect to career are possible. Changing your profession. Also, this is good for being a human resource manager, because Aquarius rules human resources. Astrology is taken seriously and it is a regular part of your discourse. So you may talk about astrology often. Living a reality that strays from the norm, and that's very much dealing with just having Aquarius intercepted in the first house, period. And again, that ancient alien theme comes up. And it makes me think of that profile picture that you have that I was tripped out over. I was like, that is a trippy profile picture. And I would always squint because you know how the profile pictures on YouTube are real small. So whenever I would see you make a comment, here I go leaning forward, squinting to see, okay, what is that picture exactly? I'd be like, that's a weird ass picture. And it would kind of creep me out at the same time. So that profile picture alone makes me think of ancient aliens, like that image is like a person of the Anunnaki race or something like that. Now, early life may have largely been unstable, and this is very true in your case because Mercury is ruling your 8th house through Virgo, and the instability came in the form of your health, the Crohn's disease. Mercury occupying the first house means that you are very animated. You may use your hands a lot to add emphasis to your speech. You are also very communicative and you have no problem speaking up for yourself. You are very vocal and opinionated. You are not one to hold your tongue. Now, because Mercury is in Aquarius, you might be more communicative online than you are when it comes to like that person-to-person contact. You are very attentive and you rarely miss a beat. You are very observant. You learn best through observation. Public speaking could be one of your strengths, even if it means that you have to get over the fear of public scrutiny. You are very conscious of your appearance as well as how others perceive you. Now, it's not easy for you to feel settled with Mercury in Aquarius in the first house. Your nerves may often be keyed up and you may be rather high strung. Anxiety could be a problem at times. Fidgeting could be an issue as well. It may not be easy to sit still for extended periods of time. You are a fast learner and you could be loquacious at times. There could be a tendency to dominate conversations with that first house Mercury. Now, Mercury in the first house bestows flexibility, agility, and the ability to think on your feet. But you may not be as flexible as you would like because Mercury is in Aquarius, which is a fixed sign. Also, you need your daily life to be interesting and varied with first house Mercury. Now, Mercury in Aquarius produces a very tolerant and progressive mindset. Aquarius is one of the best signs for Mercury since it can produce a genius. Now, before I go further, before I forget, you did mention in one of your emails that you said sometimes you feel more Aquarian than anything else, and that's very much dealing with the fact that Aquarius is intercepted in your first house and you have Mercury in Aquarius in your first. Now, there is ease in grasping scientific and abstract concepts. Mercury in Aquarius is built for complex math, information technology, and computer science. Did I say it can produce the mind of a genius? Your mind is that of an inventor and an innovator. Your mind is very much inclined towards rational thought. While Mercury in Aquarius can denote independence of mindset, there's risk of succumbing to groupthink. This is because Aquarius pertains to the collective. Truth is paramount for Mercury in Aquarius. You are a truth seeker and truth teller. Truth is told in a raw and unapologetic manner. At times, you could come across as cold, severe, and insensitive. However, you may just see yourself as being straight up. Also, Mercury in Aquarius produces an egalitarian mindset. Your communication style is direct, plain, but also refined. Mercury in Aquarius can produce potty mouth syndrome. Mercury in Aquarius produces a goofy and smart sense of humor. It produces an inclination towards nonchalance and indifference. Mercury in Aquarius produces a mind that is focused on that which is far out of reach, which is why it brings an interest in futuristic concepts and metaphysical studies like astrology. It produces a highly intuitive mind. Your mind is like an antenna picking up signals from the ether. Some things you just know without knowing how you know them. Mercury, when in the sign of the water bearer, can enable you to easily activate the law of attraction. It's essentially a mental magnet. Thus, you attract into your life that which dominates your mind. If you want to change your life, change your mindset. Mercury in Aquarius can manifest as a unique relationship with a sibling or siblings. And in your case, that's having a half sibling. A sibling will either be a very good friend or an evil foe. There's rarely any in between when it comes to Mercury in Aquarius, when it comes to siblings. So you could either have a sibling that's your best friend, or they could be somebody that you're very indifferent towards, or where there could be estrangement. Aquarius deals with estrangement. So with Mercury, when Mercury is influenced by this sign, there could be emotional and or physical distance that exists between you and a sibling. It will be easy to make friends with neighbors. Mercury in Aquarius can produce a need for a change in environment every so often. A drastic change could have occurred with respect to your early schooling. Mercury in Aquarius can produce unique or alternative educational experiences, such as attending a charter, private, magnet, or boarding school. So here are aspects involving Mercury. Mercury is in sesqui square with Chiron. This is one of your most problematic aspects since it is representative of the challenges with Crohn's disease. And that's because Mercury rules the 8th house via Virgo. And Chiron is in Virgo. So that's like a double whammy, especially with Mercury being in your first house. Now, this aspect can manifest as having a spastic colon or lower stomach due to the influence from Aquarius. So Virgo rules the colon and also the lower stomach, rules the intestines, period. So this can deal with having a spastic colon because Mercury is in Aquarius. So the nerves in your colon, in your intestine, could be always irritated or always overstressed or excited. Also, this can produce mental health issues, and it's representative of the Crohn's disease being the trigger, like you mentioned. Problems with the gut have been known to affect the mind. Sorry, that's a typo. It's supposed to be known, not know. Let me just fix that real quick because that's driving me nuts. Besides, I wanted to check on the time anyway. All right. I'm going to have to take a break in a minute. Okay. Problems with the gut have been known to affect the mind and can produce autistic-like dispositions. So if you haven't did research on this, do research on it because it's fascinating how a disorder of the intestines, a disorder of the gut will produce problems with mental health, and where autism autism has been linked to problems within the gut. So you mentioned that people thought you were autistic. So this is one of the aspects that could manifest as autistic-like symptoms. Even though you weren't diagnosed with autism, you could have came across as being autistic simply because of the Crohn's disease impacting your ability to have that, normal disposition. Can be indicative of post-traumatic stress disorder. Unusual mechanical problems with cars is likely. Also, this puts you at risk of being in a car accident due to some kind of mechanical failure. Car accident could result in a fatality or near-death experience because Chiron's in the 8th house. So the unusual mechanical problems with cars, you recently had sent me an email about getting a new car and how there was a problem with it and how you had to be given a rental and that they were going to take care of the problem and all that stuff. That's very much dealing with this aspect right here. So it doesn't even matter if you get a brand new car, you could end up having to bring the car back because there's a factory recall or something like that. So cars could be one of your main sources of frustration at various times in your life. Mercury is running parallel to the midheaven. This is good for a career within the field of human resources. All right, I have to correct that typo. I'm sorry. Because I'll be giving you this PowerPoint. So if I do see typos, I will be correcting them as I go along. So good for career within the field of human resources since Mercury is in Aquarius. Mercury is running parallel to the asteroid Minerva, and this can bring challenges with gaining approval from your father. Also, this can manifest as taking a self-defense class, gaining wisdom through astrology. Mercury is opposed to the asteroid Ceres. This can manifest as problems with food, and in your case, it's due to the Crohn's disease. Dietary restrictions could be a manifestation. Mercury is running parallel to the fixed star Gienah, and Gienah deals with soaring to great heights, and it could produce potential of sudden downfall, and that could occur through a friend or associate because Mercury is in Aquarius. When I saw this soaring to great heights, it made me think of Mercury and Aquarius in general because Aquarius deals with aircraft and also UFOs. Mercury is running parallel to the fixed star Dorsum. Now, there's not much written about this fixed star, but it is known as the Wheel of Fortune, and it could be indicative of issues with a car, such as electrical, the computer system, or air conditioning, mainly because Mercury is in Aquarius and because it's running parallel to Dorsum, and Dorsum deals with the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune can sometimes be literal, such as wheels, such as a car. So that's why I put that in there. So let me know if you've ever encountered any issues with a car's electrical system, the computer system, or the air conditioning. Now you're still young, so you may not have much experience with cars, but actually you're pretty up in age where you could have had like maybe 3 cars by now. So let me know if that's the case. And especially with the recent problem with the car that you experienced, because you didn't go into detail what was wrong with the car, but let me know if there was something wonky going on with the computer system, or if it was like some type of electrical problem, like the battery wasn't connecting and all that type of stuff. Having a dead battery, you could have that, at several times, or it could just be one car in particular that you own at some point that has issues with the battery. All right, now we come to your sun. So your sun is also in the first house, but it's very much like further down the road in that first house. It's so close to your second house, cuz that you can kind of say that the sun is very much associated with your money situation. It's very much dealing with second house matters, even though it's in the first house. So keep that in mind. So your sun is at the 5th degree of Pisces in the first house. And the 5th degree of Pisces in particular can produce a mind that is centered on spirituality, mysticism, magic, and esoteric knowledge. This shows that you could take pride in the broad knowledge that you possess. That Pisces is the broadness That fifth degree deals with knowledge, and the sun is dealing with the pride. This makes me think of that trippy avatar that you have as your YouTube profile pic that I spoke of recently. Also, this can result in not being firmly rooted in this earthly plane. So it helps that you're a Capricorn rising and that you have that stellium in Capricorn. Also, this can result in being spiritual while remaining rational because the fifth degree is rational. Also, this is the degree of a writer. So I just included this quote that you made. I am also currently working on a novel, and in parentheses you wrote, not giving any spoilers, but when it comes out, you'll see the Pisces in me. So what you wrote right there is the epitome of the fifth degree of Pisces. The Pisces sun produces a very sensitive, empathic, and imaginative individual. Pisces' purpose entails being in selfless service to others. Pisces is a dual sign, and its symbol is the two fishes. One fish represents the personality and the other the spirit. I'm sure you already know this, but I'm being very generalized here. Now, often these two parts of yourself are incongruent. These two facets of Pisces explains why you have a need to merge with others, but also a need to spend equal time in solitude. And this is true for most Pisces. Now, Pisces comes with a dual purpose: to develop your personality without forsaking your spiritual gifts. Pisces can bless its natives with natural artistic talent, and you may be no exception. It produces a high appreciation for the arts. Pisces can bring a love for music, painting, photography, filmmaking, cosmetology, and fashion. Pisces is about glamour, costumes, and pageantry. Pisces is essentially the masquerade ball. Pisces also rules modeling, rules things that, just deal with getting dressed up, all that type of stuff. Pisces makes you multifaceted and well-rounded. Pisces is a dreamy, mystical, and magical sign that is drawn to that which is otherworldly. As a result, you are prone to experience paranormal activity from time to time. Spirituality is a central theme. Wishing, hoping, and praying. That is going to come in handy with you being a Pisces. The power of belief and visualization. Pisces is a sign of compassion and understanding, which is why people who are born under this sign are apt to display an outpouring of sympathy for the less fortunate. Pisces is a sign of charity, and for this reason, part of the purpose or part of your purpose is to be charitable and do what you can to help those who are in need. As a Pisces, you are very sensitive to the suffering of humanity as well as animals. You are very sympathetic and charitable. All Pisces suns should give back to society in some way. Volunteering is good for Pisces. Also, with Pisces, it's to serve or to suffer. You're given those two options, basically. And that means that if you live solely for yourself instead of serving others, your life will be full of unnecessary suffering. Pisces has a big heart and an even bigger conscience, which is why it's easy to feel guilty. Troubles can weigh heavily upon your heart. You may possess a fondness for animals and a desire to protect them. Pisces is the wildlife conservationist. Pisces loves things that are abstract, rare, and esoteric. Pisces is also a lover of science, especially chemistry and astronomy. You are imaginative, compassionate, and empathetic. You are emotionally sensitive, even if you don't reveal this trait on the surface. Pisces can be vague, evasive, and secretive. And this can be what frustrates people about Pisces, especially the vagueness and the evasiveness. Pisces is a sign of sleep, hypnosis, intoxication, illusion, and delusion. Pisces rules places of confinement, including prisons and hospitals. Pisces is the sign of the savior and also the superhero due to the secret identity theme / motif. The flip side of the savior is the martyr. There may be times where you play the role of the savior and martyr. Pisces is about sacrifice. There will be times in your life where you will be called to make sacrifices on behalf of others. There's also a need to always question whether these sacrifices are worthy. Some of the self-defeating tendencies of Pisces are self-deception, self-undoing, shifting blame, playing the victim, lying, cheating, stealing, gossiping, laziness, messiness, addiction, and a lack of realism. Passivity could be an issue too in some cases. Now, there's a vulnerability about Pisces that results in being granted spiritual protection from the universe. Pisces is a sign of miracles, magic, and mysticism. These qualities put you at an advantage over those who solely operate within the material realm. Getting caught up in fantasy and self-deception are two of the pitfalls of Pisces. The tendency towards gullibility and idealism need to be reduced as well. Pisces really doesn't like dealing with the harsh realities of life, so you are prone to escapism. The form of escapism can be anything from intoxicating substances to getting out of town for a few days. Every Pisces needs an occasional retreat from the outside world. With a first house sun, love needs to begin with yourself before it's shown to others. On the negative end, the sun in the first house can cause you to be rather self-conscious. A first house sun can cause you to be vulnerable to back problems and back injuries. There's a need to take precaution when you are lifting heavy objects. There is a need for you to be a person of significance and importance when the sun is in the first house. Much attention will be given to the body, and in your case, it makes sense with the Crohn's disease that you had. Also, you could be very image conscious. Seeking validation through others can be a problem. Your sun rules intercepted Leo in the 7th. So this could really be a problem. Now, it may not be a problem on a regular basis, but once you get into a relationship, you could be seeking that validation through a partner. Or you may feel like you need to be in a relationship in order to feel validated, in order to feel like you really matter or that your life matters. So having the sun in the first house, but it's ruling intercepted Leo in the 7th, that's not an easy hookup right there. That could cause you to give too much of your will over to a partner when you get into a relationship. So you're always going to have to check yourself, especially because you're a Pisces. You could end up merging too much with your partner to the point where you no longer exist as an individual. What helps is that your sun is in the first house in that respect, because that's going to make you wake up from time to time and say, wait a minute, I no longer feel like myself. I'm no longer being myself. So very much about knowing thyself when the sun is in the first house. Sun conjunct Saturn. So this makes you very ambitious yet compassionate. Now this conjunction is not too close. These two planets aren't too close together, which is actually a good thing, because having Saturn too close to the sun can make you too Saturnian. I mean, you're already Saturnian because Saturn is your chart ruler, and you have that Capricorn stellium. And with this, it makes you Saturnian, but not as much as if Saturn was closer to your sun. So with your sun being at 5 degrees Pisces, Saturn being at 13, there's 8 degrees, or maybe a little less than 8 degrees difference between the sun and Saturn, which again is actually a good thing. If they were very close, that would make you very controlling. You might even come across as mean. Now, this conjunction makes you very career oriented. And again, like I said before, life could largely be mainly about work, and that's reinforcing the Capricorn stellium. Ease in getting promoted, commanding respect. This can produce a controlling father. And because it's in Pisces, there could be some shame involving your father. Like your father could be kind of ashamed of you, and vice versa. You could be ashamed of your father in some ways. Now, this conjunction makes you built for executive and administrative work. It's also good for entrepreneurship. Also, it can manifest as a savior or hero complex due to the Pisces influence. And it can make it hard to just let go and enjoy yourself at times. It can make you too controlled in terms of your self-expression. Happiness can be elusive at times, and this can produce a hardened heart, but not nearly as much when we're dealing with the Pisces influence. Now, your sun is in square with Pluto. This is one of the most problematic aspects of your chart. And that's why I included this quote right here. You said, and my dad didn't like me either. And Sun square Pluto can manifest as that. It can deal with where you feel rejected by your father. You said, my dad was very hateful and cold towards me during this, causing me to attempt suicide the summer before my sophomore year of high school. So this is very much dealing with Sun square Pluto. Then you said, but I find it very hard to connect with others on an intimate level. I'm not very trusting. This is very much dealing with Sun square Pluto. Not being very trusting is also dealing with your Capricorn stellium. But this Sun square Pluto in particular can make you very distrusting of people in general. And then this can produce problems with a man, because you could get with a man that, number one, maybe he's not to be trusted. This can actually result in you attracting some of the worst types of men, honestly. So you got to be very selective when it comes to the men that you attract, or the men that you consider to be potential love interests. And this can make it hard to connect with others on an intimate level, just like how you said. And you did say one of your questions was, will I be able to have like a close, intimate relationship with a man? This is one of the aspects that can make it very hard. Now, this can cause you to face hatred at various points in your life. Also, death surrounds you when you have Sun square Pluto. And life is at risk of being cut short with Sun square Pluto, but not always. But cut short can mean even like maybe when you turn 55, or with that second Saturn return, that could take you out of here. Just know that Sun square Pluto is not conducive to a long life. It can manifest as a life-threatening illness. Now, you could overcome it, but you could be brought to the brink of death in terms of illness, because your Sun is in Pisces. Now, the heart is vulnerable, meaning your literal heart, but also your heart in terms of love. Now, the heart is vulnerable, the life is vulnerable, and your will to live will be tested from time to time. Also, this can result in being guilty by association, so you got to be very careful who you associate with. Also, this can manifest as avoidance. So this is going to make it hard for you to be in a relationship, because that Pluto influence will cause you to avoid a lot of situations and avoid a lot of people in general. Self-expression is suppressed at times due to this aspect. And this aspect can make you very sexual, too lustful, and just downright nasty. Or you can attract a man that's like this. He could be a sex addict. He could be just like, he can't get enough. Like, his sexual desires just are never sated. You should have seen the look on my face when I was talking about that. I had the stank face. Now, your Sun is running parallel to the asteroid Lilith. This is the asteroid Lilith, not Black Moon Lilith. So, with this, you could be treated as an outcast or a pariah at times in your life. This could result in feeling like the black sheep. And you did mention feeling like an outcast. Issues with being sexually liberated, and you do have that issue. And you may view a lot of online porn, since the Sun is in Pisces and Lilith is at the 25th degree of Aquarius. Gay porn is another manifestation of this aspect. And you did mention, you was like, if you saw my Google history, you said something like that. I was like, ooh. Looking online for hookup opportunities, that's a possible manifestation. And the fantasy alone could be keeping you from being sexually active with a man. So you could have one of those issues where you've watched so much porn over the years that you can't connect with a man in the physical sense. Your Sun is also conjoined to the asteroid Nemesis. And this could deal with you placing blame on your father, especially in terms of his ineptness. Ineptness? Is that a word? Or you could say being inept. Ineptness. You could tell I need to take a break. I'm going to be taking a break as soon as I finish this first house, because this was a doozy. Serious court case is possible. And you have the Sun being conjoined to the fixed star Deneb Adij. And Deneb Adij deals with being a wise leader, finding the joy inherent in sorrow and vice versa, glory and fame if death is avoided, betrayal is possible, loss of position if associated with the sun or the moon. So you could lose your position at some point. That could be, maybe you are some type of manager of a job and then you lose your job for whatever reason. The sun is conjoined to the Arabic part of imprisonment. And this could deal with a man of significance, whether it's your father or a lover who spends a period of time in prison. More than likely, it could be a lover. Now, he could be an ex-con. So when you meet him, he might have that little sob story. Yeah, I was locked down for like 3 years because of, they accused me of robbery, but I didn't rob, they never do it. I didn't do it. That's why, the appeal process be extra long, because most of these prisoners, they always appeal. I didn't do it, even though their hands got blood all over them. Also, if you decide to have a child could spend some time in prison because the sun represents children. Also, this can manifest as being imprisoned by an illness. So imprisonment could be in the figurative sense, and this could deal with the Crohn's disease that you had, which I'm sure felt like a prison sentence. And here is your chart again before we get into that second house. So again, let me just recap some of what I already spoke about. So basically, we covered this entire first house right here. Let me clear that and draw it again, because so this entire first house, that's why it took so long. I also included Venus in the mix because it's conjoined to the ascendant. So this is why this first part took so long, because look at all this energy in your first house. And then you have that Aquarius intercepted in your first house. So the themes of Aquarius will be highlighted to a large degree, will be extra pronounced in your life. With that, having Aquarius intercepted in the first, you really got to be careful about your ankles, your shins, your calves, but also your circulatory system could be jacked up at some point. Your veins, arteries. Also, this could produce issues with the nerves as well. So, and Aquarius intercepted can produce issues with friendships. And if you were to get with an Aquarius sun in terms of a relationship, you might feel like they are like basically almost the same as you. Like you might be like, oh my God, we got so much in common. Y'all might be like, joined at the hip. Y'all might, hit it off immediately. But then once the relationship is underway, you might find that, you know what? I feel like I'm living too much for my partner. I feel like I'm living too much for this Aquarius. I feel like this person is basically dictating how my whole life is going to go. They're even telling me what to wear, how to wear my hair. They're even telling me how to act, how to walk, how to talk. And now you might start getting resentful. You just always got to be careful of anybody that falls into your first house, because you might start to feel like you exist only for them. You exist only to make them happy. And they might depend upon you too much for their happiness and for them to feel significant. They might be seeking a lot of validation through you. Breakups can be very devastating when a person's sun falls into your first house. So that would be the last 6 days of Capricorn season. So any Capricorns born during the last week of Capricorn season, and then all Aquarians will fall into your first house. And you can even include people that have planets in Aquarius, but their sun is not in Aquarius. So it could be a Pisces with planets in Aquarius, or another sign with planets in Aquarius. A person could just have Mars in Aquarius, and they could be wielding too much influence over your life, where you'll start to resent them after a while. It will be the Aquarians where you feel like, you can't be your own individual after a while. So just take that into account. So all Aquarians, I would just advise you, don't date an Aquarian at all. Just don't even do it. Just avoid them, because that's just too much power you're giving them over yourself. And they might really mistreat you in certain ways. They may treat you as an extension of themselves. They may even well, they could be really good sexually. I'll say that. They could be really freaky deaky with you and all that type of stuff. But at the same time, they could be really tyrannical with you. Now, with Pisces, as you can see, you got the first 8 degrees of Pisces is in your first house. So that would mean any Pisces born during the first 8 days of Pisces season, they would fall into your first house as well. So you got to be careful with them too. But they could feel like, they could be a mirror image of yourself. You might be like, God, they're so much like me. And we need a little variety in our life. You really don't want to get with somebody that's exactly like how you are. So just to recap, I would stay away from the Capricorns born during the last week of Capricorn season. I would stay away from all Aquarians if I were you, and Pisces that are born during the first week of Pisces season as well. So I'm going to take a little short break, but it won't seem like I'm taking a break because I'm just pressing pause. And I will be back where I discuss houses 2 through 6. That will be the end of part 1. And then I'll be back with part 2 where I talk about houses 7 through 12. And again, it's going to go much quicker from here on out because your first house had the most concentration of planets. So let me just take a little break and I'll be back. Okay, I am back. Let me share my screen so we can get into the second house. Just 1 second. Okay, second house. Now, the second house deals with money, possessions, resources. It also deals with your values, your standards. It also deals with your taste, your preferences. Now, you have the 8th degree of Pisces on your second house cusp. And the 8th degree of Pisces in particular can manifest as follows. This could deal with collecting old photographs. So you mentioned that you just have this strong liking for history and you really like to look at old photographs. So that's very much the 8th degree of Pisces. Being expected to come to people's rescue. Also, you may believe that chivalry is not dead. Being scammed or conned out of money by a business. Manifesting what you envision. Work that involves helping people to recover losses. And that's very much dealing with the Four of Pentacles card because I pulled a card for you to represent your purpose. And I got the Four of Pentacles card, and that is a Capricorn card. It's dealing with the Sun in Capricorn in particular. So part of your purpose as a Pisces with that Capricorn influence is very much about helping people to recover what they lost. And that's very Four of Pentacles, also helping people to safeguard their resources, or it could be helping a company to safeguard their resources or to manage their finances. It could deal with managing big budgets. And just also know with that Four of Pentacles, that's about being put to the test. So your skills, your abilities could be put to the test at various times of your life. You might even just feel like your life is just one big test. And Four of Pentacles is about getting those coins, securing that bag. So very much your life is going to be dealing with that. Now, money can easily slip through your fingers when Pisces is on the second house cusp. However, money usually comes when you need it the most. Financial management may be one of your biggest challenges unless the rulers of the second house are in practical signs. Neptune, ruler of the second house, being in Capricorn, can help you to counteract the pitfalls of Pisces on the second. Jupiter, co-ruler of the second house, is in Sagittarius, which is not conducive to saving money. It can cause you to be quite extravagant at times. Jupiter in Sagittarius is conducive to the creation of wealth, however. So you could end up making a lot of money at some point. Financial freedom is a major theme. When Pisces is on the second house cusp, earning money for the sake of seeing your bank account grow is not the aim. This watery sign influencing the second house can result in shunning the rat race for a more bohemian type of existence at some point. Pisces can represent money that insulates you from the threat of poverty when it is covering the second house. For instance, the money could be in the form of an inheritance, trust fund, or proceeds from the sale of a home. Pisces in relation to the second house is conducive to earning money in positions that enable you to work behind the scenes or in isolation. Theft is a major theme when Pisces is in the second house. Money or possessions could be stolen from you at some point, and it could be at the hands of a friend or associate since Jupiter is in the 11th house and it is squaring Saturn. I have Pisces in the second house, and I've been a victim of theft at various times in my life. Pisces in the second house can also produce a temptation within you to take what is not rightfully yours. Neptune is conjoined to Venus, which reinforces this possibility, especially with Venus being in the 12th house. The inclination towards thievery, even if it's petty, could be stronger in your youth. This can also manifest as a partner who steals from you, with Neptune ruling the second being conjoined to Venus. So you might, wake up one day, check your bank account, your man is gone, and your bank account's been cleared out. Pisces, when on the second house cusp, can bring a desire to merge money and resources with others. On the flip side, it can produce a tendency to mooch off of others, or some of the people in your life could be moochers. It's going to be more of where you're attracting moochers because Neptune is conjoined to Venus. Charity is a major theme of Pisces, so at some points in your life, you may have a yearning to donate to a charity. Pisces on the second house cusp produces highly developed senses and a great appreciation for aesthetics. It also produces a great appreciation for the arts. You could be a collector of certain forms of art or music. Neptune conjoined to Venus in Capricorn points to your appreciation for historical eras and old photographs. A high value is placed upon spiritual subjects and the study of metaphysics. Receiving spiritual advisement is a major theme of Pisces when in the second house. Jupiter in Sagittarius, co-ruling the second house, reinforces this notion. Jupiter is in the 11th house, which is indicative of receiving intuitive and astrological readings as a form of advice. That 11th house Jupiter can also result in earning money through human resources. Neptune in Capricorn is good for being an executive of a nonprofit organization or a founder of your own charitable organization, since Neptune is on the ascendant. It's good for fundraising, managing grants, and donations for an organization. You could make money through a YouTube channel at some point. And there is risk of identifying with your financial status or the amount of money you have at any given point in time. And that's because Neptune's on the ascendant. Not having an adequate amount of money could lead to depression and a feeling of inadequacy. Saturn is in Pisces in your second house. Now, we already covered Saturn, but here are just some additional points dealing with Saturn and Pisces in your second house. So like I said before, Saturn's at the 13th degree of Pisces and it's in your second house. It's indicative of your sentiments about your father and his handling of money. Also, you may have a need to outdo him financially, and this may not be a conscious need on your part. Your father could become a moocher, especially when you start making that real good money. High value is placed upon the romantic side of history, so we already discussed that. Hard lessons with respect to a lack of discretion in spending. Being a mark for scammers and con artists. A chance of food poisoning, and that's because of that Pisces influence in the second house. And with Pisces in my second house, I have dealt with food poisoning before. And it was like an ongoing illness that lasted like 3 months. It was terrible. Like, it messed my gallbladder up and everything. Sudden loss of a job. Possibility of loss of possessions due to water damage. So here is your second house. Here's Saturn right here. Here's that conjunction between the sun and Saturn. Like I said, it's not too close, which is actually a good thing. Unless you were really, really bent upon being like a CEO or, some type of high level government official or something like that. But
yeah, it's actually good that Saturn is not that close to your sun, and they're in different houses, as you can see. And then if you look at the sun, like I was saying, that sun is all the way down at the bottom of your first house. It's very close to your second house, so it's very much influencing your money as well. The rest of your first house planets are near the ascendant. Let me just clear this. Also, Aries begins in your first house as well. So at some point, you might be very much about making some money independently. So you could be making money through a career, through a job, employment, but you might also be making some money on the side independently because Aries starts in your second house. Also, Aries in the second house can make it easy for your possessions to become damaged. And that can also deal with where the men you attract are very much in your pocket, some of the men. And Mars being in Leo, co-ruler of that second house in the seventh house can point to that as well. Also, a man could really impact your self-esteem because Mars co-ruler of the second house in the seventh. So being in a relationship, you could get with a man that either increases your level of self-esteem or he makes it worse. All right, let me clear this. Third house. So the third house begins at the 18th degree of Aries. And you've been watching my videos for a while, so I know you know about that 18th degree. It's nothing nice. So that 18th degree of Aries can manifest as academic prowess, always in search of new mental thrills, antagonism at the hands of fellow students, and you told me that you were bullied throughout school. So that 18th degree of Aries on the third house cusp makes a lot of sense because the third house deals with school. Sex is often on the brain. That 18th degree can be hypersexual, especially if we're talking about the 18th degree of Aries. Conflict with half sister and aunt because the third house deals with siblings and also relatives. Also, you could suffer from tunnel vision with the 18th degree of Aries influencing the third house. Words can sometimes turn people against you. So, combative speech is a product of the 18th degree of Aries when on the third house cusp. You can be too forceful in terms of speech. Now, wherever Aries falls in the chart is where the work on your individual self needs to begin. Thus, with Aries on the third house cusp, the work needs to begin with your conscious mind. Aries on the third house cusp results in a high degree of intelligence. It means that you are a quick learner and you process information at a fast pace. You are very inquisitive and eager to acquire new knowledge. Aries on the third house cusp can produce forcefulness of speech and impulsive speech. And the 18th degree just exacerbates that. You won't hesitate to speak your mind. Aries on the third house cusp endows you with a competitive spirit when it comes to learning. Mars, ruler of the third house in Leo, reinforces this competitive tendency. Conflicts with siblings, relatives, and neighbors are likely to occur. Communication devices such as a cell phone or laptop could run hot. Sometimes they could overheat. Prone to sustaining injuries to the arms and hands. That could be in the form of cuts and burns. Now, you may like to drive fast with Aries on the third, and this brings a possibility of an auto accident. And with Mars ruling the third house being in Leo and being in the seventh, it could be the fault of a young driver. Mars in the seventh can cause you to be too concerned with having the upper hand in a conversation. Displays of mental dominance could be a tendency that needs to be reduced, especially because Mars is in Leo. Pride can easily be wounded when you are around people who are more knowledgeable than you. Mars, ruler of the third house, occupying the seventh in Leo, is good for being a motivational speaker. It can result in becoming well known for what you have to say. Creative writing is a product of Mars and Leo when ruling the third house. Some of your writing material could be derived from your interactions with others because Mars is in the seventh. Teaching children or young adults could be part of your purpose at some point, and that's because Mars is in Leo. Mars is in trine with Jupiter, which can result in the publishing of your book and perhaps other books that you write. So you did mention that you were writing a book. So this aspect, Mars trine Jupiter, is about getting your book published. Mars trine Jupiter is also good for hosting a podcast. Now, your South Node is in the third house. It's in Taurus. So you always want to look to the South Node as the underlying reason for the problems and challenges that befall you, and for some of the tendencies that can trip you up. Now, the South Node is at the 8th degree of Taurus in the third house. So that 8th degree surfaces again. You have the 8th degree of Pisces on the second house cusp, 8th degree of Virgo on the 8th house cusp. You have your nodes at the 8th degree of Taurus and Scorpio. So that 8 is strong in your life, and it's reflecting that Capricorn energy. And it's also reflecting that Four of Pentacles card, which is that card that's representing your purpose. Let me see. Do you have anything else at the 8th degree? Mercury. Mercury is also at the 8th degree. So you have a strong 8 signature in your chart. One thing I forgot to mention too about your sun being at the 5th degree of Pisces, that 5th degree reflects your life path number of 5, which is good for being a writer. 8th degree of Taurus in particular. This is conducive to financial management. So you could have been very much about financial management in your past life. It can make you inflexible in terms of your standards. It can make you methodical in terms of working style. This can deal with you valuing certain historical periods because the 8th degree is very much about history. Work that involves verifying information. Your father's handling of money, and that's affected your mindset dealing with money. Reinforcing karmic debt theme of the South Node. So that 8th degree is very much karmic, and it's reinforcing a karmic theme of your Taurus South Node. And this is an interesting thing that I noticed. So on April 29th of 1995, which was like a couple of months after you were born, there was an annular solar eclipse that landed on your South Node. And I see that being the trigger to the problems associated with that Taurus South Node, where it triggered the problems to become extra pronounced. And it makes me think of the Crohn's disease in particular, because Taurus deals with food, and then that Scorpio deals with vomiting. So I was wondering what was going on when that eclipse took place. But eclipses could have an effect that lasts for years. And it had me thinking about your Scorpio North Node in particular, and how Scorpio deals with injections, and how Scorpio also deals with vaccinations. So I was wondering if there was some link between a vaccination that you received and the Crohn's disease. The interesting thing is there has been a correlation, not necessarily causation, but there's been a correlation between Crohn's disease and other intestinal disorders and vaccines, especially the MMR vaccine, which stands for measles, mumps, and rubella. And they've actually done tests on patients that have Crohn's disease and other intestinal disorders, and they found the measles virus to be present in the tissues of the intestine. So that's just something to consider. The mainstream medical profession does not believe that vaccines are the cause of the increase in people having Crohn's disease. I tend to beg to differ. Of course, the mainstream medical industry, they're not going to do anything that discredits the efficacy of vaccines. So you got to take that into account as well. But when I saw that eclipse, I was like, I wonder, because if we're talking about the eclipse happening approximately at 2 months old, you could have been getting a vaccine around that time, or what they call the immunization. That could have been part of the immunization schedule. But like I said, the eclipse could last for years after it becomes exact. So that degree will be sensitive for a number of years. especially once a transit of Mars and then followed by a transit of Saturn lands on that point. So when we're talking about vaccine induced illnesses, it could take years for the illness to develop. Like that, whatever, you know, toxins are in those vaccines could have a time release effect where it releases over time. And then next thing you know, you're coming down with some terrible disorder like Crohn's disease. So I just wanted to put that out there because I thought that was very interesting. The fact that the solar eclipse landed on your south node right at the 8th degree. Now, a third house south node is indication of an overuse and or misuse of the intellect. So in this lifetime, you have to kind of quiet your mind down and be more about that 9th house north node, which is to rely more so upon your intuition. I just didn't finish that sentence. I was tripping, I guess. Now, you are often too much inside your head, which ultimately explains why you are still a virgin. A third house south node can bring problems with listening due to a tendency to interrupt people in conversation. A third house south node also results in intellectual prowess that can cause you to compete with others when it comes to your knowledge and aptitude. So this goes into, like, this corresponds with you having Mars and Leo ruling your third house. This displays of mental dominance and intellectual prowess. There was likely a great deal of instability at the early part of your life. A third house south node can result in too much mental vacillation and wishy-washiness. Not so much so, though, when the south node's in Taurus, like in your case. So with that south node in Taurus, you'll be more fixed in terms of mindset, and you'll be much, very stubborn, very resistant to other points of view. It can also result in an inclination towards moral relativism. The third house south node can cause you to be contrary for no apparent reason. The underlying reason is a need to keep the verbal volleying going. Now, about the moral relativism, because your south node is in Taurus, in a past life, it could have been moral relativism in terms of money. So you could have been gaining money in some ways that might have been deemed to be immoral. Now, too much emphasis has been placed on the conscious mind in past lives. In this lifetime, there's a need to become more receptive to intuitive messages, like I was saying before. A third house south node puts you at risk for serious car accidents. So this is where heeding your intuition can come in handy, and it may actually save your life. So with the south node being in Taurus, in the third house, your safety is at risk when you get in a car. I'm not saying all the time, but there could come a time where you get into a car accident. I've seen it time and time again with third house south nodes and Gemini south nodes, which is basically one and the same. Now, serious challenges may exist involving siblings, relatives, and neighbors. A third house south node is indicative of challenges with early schooling, and that points to you being bullied. Mercury is square in the south node, which ensured that this was the case in your life. So Mercury being in Aquarius, that could result in being bullied at school, period. But when it's square in the south node, I'm thinking that bullying was probably really rough. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that tough time, but this is part of your karmic debt. So it is what it is. When the south node is in Taurus, the tendency towards stubbornness and possessiveness needs to be overcome. There's also a tendency to resist necessary change. The more resistance you put up, the more unsettling and upsetting these changes will be. In your past life, too much emphasis was placed on the material side of life. In this lifetime, if too much importance is given to material gain, you stand to lose much of what you have acquired. Now, I know I was talking about you're supposed to be getting those coins in this lifetime, but once you get those coins, you're supposed to be doing something meaningful with that money instead of just hoarding it, instead of just opening up your bank statement and just, admiring your bank balance. That's not the purpose of that Scorpio North Node. So with that Taurus South Node, you can't be all about just having money for the sake of it. You really got to make some positive changes in the lives of others with the money that you acquire. The Taurus South Node is essentially pointing to money karma that has been incurred over past lives, or you could just say over your most recent past life. Money could be a constant source of consternation. It may seem that financial security is often far out of reach. You may feel that you never have enough money, or you may have disdain for the manner in which you earn it. Again, earning money for the sake of it is not the way in this lifetime. Even earning money in terms of survival, like just being stuck in that survival mode, is not the way in this lifetime. You have to rise above the whole survival mode. In this lifetime, if you work solely for the purpose of paying bills, i.e., survival, you will not be fulfilled. There's a chance that you will forsake your calling for the sake of maintaining a stable means of income. Now, there might be a time where you walk away from a sizable salary simply because it's going against your principles. What you're being asked to do might go against your principles, might result in your integrity being compromised. That actually happened to me when I was working for the University of Phoenix. I was making pretty good money at the time, but me and my boss got into it, and I actually told her off on the floor in front of everybody because she got me to that limit. And usually I'm not that type of person, but she brought me there. You might be in a similar situation at some point where you find yourself sacrificing a nice amount of income or a very comfortable income because what you're being asked to do or how you're being treated goes against your principles. Or it could mean that, you know, the way you're earning your money is not meaningful to you. So if you want more meaning in your life, that might require you to step away from a six-figure income. Now, I wasn't making six figures. I probably would have thought twice before telling her off and like walking out of there. But you get what I'm saying. The Taurus South Node produces rigidity where values and standards are concerned. This rigidity can keep you from gaining new perspectives on life, which is very much needed. You are naturally inclined to do things the hard way, which can keep you trapped in a pattern of productivity followed by stagnation. And you could just end up being overworked and being hella frustrated as a result. I'm constantly fighting this tendency in terms of doing things the hard way. I'm constantly trying to come up with easier ways to tackle my task in terms of my business. But it's always a challenge, and you might find that to be the case too. Yeah, having a Taurus South Node is not easy. Um, and I'm definitely a witness to that. Now, the Taurus South Node brings an inclination towards hoarding. Before I finish, I do have to say we are very similar in some ways. We're both Capricorn risings. We both have Taurus South Nodes. What else is very similar? Like just our house placements in terms of the signs on the house cuts, very similar. I just don't have Aquarius intercepted in my first house. I have Pisces intercepted in my second house. So that's one of the key differences. But we both got money karma with that Taurus South Node, and it shows up in different ways in the both of our charts. Now, the Taurus South Node brings an inclination towards hoarding. It is not easy for you to part with that which holds even an inkling of significance. But in this lifetime, your possessions can really hold you down or weigh you down, I'll say. The Taurus South Node also produces fixation, such as an oral fixation, or you could become fixated on just about anything that brings you pleasure. You could become fixated on beauty, even. Past life of living well has caused you to become hyper indulgent in this current incarnation. If you felt like you were rich in a past life, you probably were, because that Taurus South Node can deal with where you had plenty of money and you was just living at La Dolce Vita, that good life. Your love of food and drink could get you into trouble in the form of excessive weight gain and health problems. There's a chance that a thyroid condition could develop. Now, in your case, the karma associated with food is dealing with your Crohn's disease, and it could stem from your past life. You probably were too indulgent with respect to food in a past life. So in this current lifetime, you ended up with Crohn's disease, which resulted in you not even being able to enjoy food. Stiffness of the neck is a common manifestation of the Taurus South Node, and this stems from rigidity of mindset. Disorders of the throat and mouth are possible manifestations of the Taurus South Node as well, which again makes me think of the Crohn's disease and how it manifested with you, because you said it didn't produce diarrhea, but it caused you to vomit. So I'm pretty sure like vomiting all the time was irritating your throat. So I don't know if you ended up getting like ulcers on your throat or, ulcers in your mouth as a result. Because, when you throw up that, when you vomit, stomach acid is coming up. So it could be caustic to your throat and your mouth. So let me know if you ended up getting any sores in your mouth or if you would get like sore throats and stuff. There will be times where you will be forced to part with that which you treasure. Material loss is a major theme of the Taurus South Node. Since the South Node is in the third house, the loss could be a car. Losses will occur to combat the tendency towards possessiveness and materialism. The tendency to place too much emphasis on superficial concerns also needs to be reduced. Taurus is about the mainstream, but in this lifetime, you will find mainstream culture to be vapid and devoid of any meaning. Being too involved in the mainstream and clinging to the status quo will impede the necessary evolutionary process set forth by the Scorpio North Node. Scorpio is about exclusivity, but Taurus is about the mainstream. When you're dealing with Taurus in the third house, that's like the mainstream media. So you may have found over the years that the mainstream media cannot be trusted with that Taurus South Node in the third house. So here are aspects involving the South Node. So the South Node doesn't have to be all bad because it can deal with skills, gifts, and talents that you have brought over from your past life. And that will be indicative when you see the South Node being in positive aspect to planets and points in your chart, such as this one, Sun Sextile South Node. Now, this can bring an opportunity to meet a man from an island nation such as Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, since the sun is in Pisces. And you did mention that you have a liking towards Hispanic men, I believe you said, or maybe you even said Puerto Ricans in particular. Now, this man may satisfy your past life need for beauty and indulgence, so he could be quite good looking. But some of them good looking ones, those are some of the worst ones. I tell you, they really be acting up. Good for volunteering within your local community, such as at a food bank or a community garden. Also, this deals with you being able to absorb information very easily, solid recall of facts. You could have a photographic memory because your sun is in Pisces. Also, this points to you being the high school salutatorian, where also you were a straight A student. I always say that Taurus can produce a straight A student, especially if it's connected to Mercury or in the third house. So there it is right there. Sun, sextile South Node. That can deal with where you took a lot of pride in your aptitude and your ability to get good grades, and that resulted in you being the straight A student and becoming the high school salutatorian. Blessings and miracles involving cars. And you did say you basically had a blessing with this recent situation with the new car. Finding money. So you could just stumble upon money at various times in your life. Like you could luck up and find $20 just on the ground somewhere. And here you go right here. Now, when you sent me this picture and I really looked at it, I was like, oh my God, that is like a representation of your Mercury squaring the North and South nodes. So I don't know if these are your parents right here, but looks like female and a male. So the male, that could be one of the nodes, and the woman grabbing your hand could be the other node. So that Mercury is representing your arms and hands. So that's like you being pulled in two different directions. I love this picture because again, it exemplifies this aspect to a T. I love it. So thank you so much for sending this to me. So Mercury square South Node, this is one of your most problematic aspects, hands down. So you had wrote When I was in the 7th grade, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which further took me down a very dark path mentally. That is very much dealing with Mercury squaring your South Node, especially because Mercury rules your 8th house via Virgo. This aspect also pertains to the vomiting that resulted from the Crohn's disease. It also pertains to the removal of part of your small intestine in 2016. And I forgot to look at the transits that was going down. You might already know what transit you had going down, but it'll be interesting. I think I'll look at that before I do part 2. Being bullied in school, bipolar aspect, and this can produce mental instability in general. And that bipolar aspect, that can also be representative of that picture too that I showed you, that you said right here. Because bipolar just means going from one extreme to another. Sister and aunt are the antagonists because they're represented by Mercury. So sister and aunt are the antagonists and trigger South Node tendencies, such as being stubborn, inflexible, guarded, and superficial. And it could trigger a South Node tendency with that Taurus about being having low self-esteem. So they could have been targeting your self-esteem. They could have been inflicting damage upon your self-esteem. Issues with sex, sexual hangups, abstinence. This is the underlying reason why you're still a virgin, with Mercury ruling the 8th house via Virgo. Virgo is the sign of the virgin. And with Mercury being in Aquarius, Aquarius just isn't a sign that's conducive to, having constant sex unless you're gay. But even in your case, because it's square in the South Node and the North Node, it's producing sexual hangups. But you're still very sexual because you be watching all that porn online and shit. But when it comes to actually connecting with another person sexually, that's where you're going to end up with some problems. This is another aspect that can manifest as car trouble. You could end up having to put more money in a car than anticipated, and it's representative of your recent issue with the car. Issues with the electrical system or computer are possible because Mercury's in Aquarius. Safety issues, like I mentioned before, and possible recalls. So cars and local transportation, namely because the South Node's in the 3rd house, that could be one of your main challenges in life. Chiron is forming a sesame square with your South Node, and this is pointing to the Crohn's disease that produced problems with food and eating, and where eating became painful. It can point to a need to avoid certain foods, problems with your esophagus, possible scarring due to the frequent vomiting. Explains why you were still a virgin. So this is another aspect that can make it hard to just let go in terms of being a virgin and just to experience that first sexual experience, because Chiron's in the 8th house and it's in Virgo. Some of what you encounter within the insurance industry could conflict with your values. And that could be part of the reason why you want to transition into human resources. This is another aspect that could produce car trouble simply because the South Node is in the 6th house, not 6th house, 3rd house, and Chiron is in Virgo. Virgo is the sign of mechanics and repairs. Challenges with asking for help, being torn about helping out a sibling or relative financially, and the South Node's running parallel to the fixed star Denebula. And Denebula can deal with criticism, but also perseverance. It can point to issues with control, also honors. It can deal with having a lack of imagination, but I know that's not true in your case because you're a Pisces. It can result in having undesirable associates. It can manifest as mental illness, also where happiness turns to despair. It can manifest as disease, natural disasters, and catastrophes. So you could be in an area that is prone to natural disasters. With that fixed star pertaining to natural disasters, I would caution you to avoid living in areas where there is a high incidence of natural disasters. And the South Node is running parallel to Ras Algethi, and that's a fixed star that can produce fixity of purpose, strength of character, an ardent nature, and also dangerous passions. So that dangerous passions could just deal with the fact that maybe once you start becoming sexually active, you might discover that you like being choked out because, Taurus rules the neck. And with the South Node running parallel to this star, yeah, it could end up like that. And the South Node is also conjoined to the fixed star Azha. And Azha deals with a love of knowledge. It deals with science. It can result in much travel. And since the South Node's in the third house, you could be doing much travel locally. Many changes, position of authority. So you could be in a position of authority at various times of your life. Accidents at sea, drowning. So maybe you drowned in a past life because the South Node is conjoined to this star. And let me know if you have a fear of large bodies of water. And here's your chart again. So here is that South Node hanging out in your third house. And here's the aspects that I spoke about. So here's that aspect between Chiron and the South Node. And here's Mercury squaring that South Node. And here is the sextile between the South Node and the Sun, right here. I noticed you had Thor's hammer aspect pattern in your chart. I forgot to mention that. All right. But that Thor's hammer is very much dealing with the illness. All right, let me clear this. The fourth house. Oh, wait. Let me go back. So, because I always like to talk about, if people fall in one of your houses. So let's say you got a Pisces and they fall in your second house, because I didn't talk about the second house in terms of potential mates. So you could have one or two outcomes with that. The Pisces man could either be very generous towards you financially and, buy you all these nice things, buy you, exotic colognes and stuff like that, and, high-end jewelry and stuff like that, or whatever you want. And he could also, just any Pisces period that's born after the 8th day of Pisces season could really value you. I do like when a person's sun ends up in the second house, because it can mean that they very much value you and it can produce a long-term relationship. But on the flip side, it can also result in attracting someone who's always in your pockets. So that would be any Pisces born after the 8th day of Pisces season. And then Aries would be included in that too, because you have 18 degrees of Aries in your second house. So if you get with an Aries man, he might be, very generous towards you, buy you nice things, and he might contribute to your financial security just like a Pisces would. But you could also attract the wrong type of Aries that's always in your pockets, always asking you for money, becomes dependent upon you financially. Also, both these Pisces and Aries individuals, they could become very possessive over you. They could be very protective over you at the same time, very concerned about your safety and security, but they could be very possessive, very jealous, and some of them may treat you like an object, like you're just one of their possessions. They may feel like they own you. And then remember, I talked about the theft, possibility of theft. It could be a Pisces or an Aries that is cleaning out your bank account. All right, third house. So as I said before, the 18th degree of Aries falls on your third house cusp. So any Aries being born during the last several days of Aries season, you could just include that last week of Aries season, will fall into your third house. These men they could like be a lover, but also feel like a brother to you. So the two of you could relate to each other very easily, but there might be frequent disagreements, especially since we're talking about Aries, especially if we're talking about Aries individuals. Y'all could always be bickering, going back and forth. Also, Aries could wield too much influence over your mind. Now, both Aries and Taurus, any of them that fall into your third house, will be very much interested in what you have to say, very intrigued by your mind, and you can learn a lot from them and they can learn a lot from you. Conversations could last for hours. and y'all could just have a really tight connection, but it could be more on the casual level than, you know, an intimate level. It could be hard becoming intimate with someone whose sun falls in your third house, or it could also be hard just maintaining that emotional closeness. This is going to be more so of a mental connection that you have with any Aries or Taurus that fall into your third house. So I just wanted to put that out there. Also, if you get with the wrong type of Aries or Taurus, they could always be trying to drive your car. Like they could be like, let me hold your car. I gotta go to the store. Let me hold your car. So yeah. Fourth house. As you can see, you got Taurus on the fourth house cusp. Now we are going into the houses that are unoccupied. So as you see, you only have 3 houses that are unoccupied. You have the 4th, 5th, and the 6th. So let's continue with that 4th house. So the 17th degree of Taurus is beginning the 4th house. And that 17th degree of Taurus in particular can deal with success that is very much contingent upon where you live, because the 4th house deals with your home base. It reinforces the father theme of the 4th house because 17 breaks down to 8 and issues with father and money. Success in terms of personal life can come much later. Ability to earn money from the comforts of your home. A home comes with hidden costs, and that hidden part is due to that 7 influence from the 17, and family secrets could be present. Now, Taurus, when on the 4th house cusp, produces a need for a peaceful and serene home environment that provides a high level of comfort. Scenery is very important to you, so you're apt to gravitate towards locations that contain scenic landscapes. Taurus, when on the 4th house cusp, is not really conducive to the hustle and bustle of big city living. If you live in a big city, you could feel isolated since Venus, ruler of the 4th house, is in the 12th. Money could be earned within the confines of home when Taurus is on the 4th house cusp. Venus in Capricorn reinforces this possibility because Capricorn deals with work. So the whole working from home theme is major in your chart. And you could be working from home now because of this whole ether situation. A job could afford you the opportunity of telecommuting, or money could be earned via a home-based business. Money could also be earned through real estate. Venus in Capricorn in relation to the 4th house is conducive to loft style living. It is conducive to open floor plans and living in a high-rise apartment. You may lean on the minimalist end with respect to home decor and furnishings. Antiques and vintage items could be part of your design scheme. Like I just get a picture, like when I think about your chart with Taurus on the 4th, Venus in Capricorn in the 12th, I think of you like living in a loft style apartment, and you having like it has that jazzy feel to it. And then like you got like one of the walls is like a brick facade, and then you got black and white photos framed on the wall and stuff. That's what I envision when I think about your home. And then where it's also like that minimalist feel where, you know, there's not a lot of clutter. Now, since Venus is in Capricorn, where you live will be very important in terms of your career. And you did mention your plans to relocate to Colorado, I believe, before this year is out. For instance, you may feel obligated to live in a major city due to the job opportunity. Money could be earned within the confines of home when Taurus is on the 4th house cusp. Venus in Capricorn reinforces this possibility. Now, Capricorn can deal with living in a metropolitan area, living in like a city. It can even deal with like living in a downtown city area. And that might only be temporary, but that might be something that you do at some point in your life. A job could afford you the opportunity of telecommuting, or money could be earned via a home-based business. So I already spoke about that. This can also translate into a YouTube channel since Venus is in the 12th. Money could be earned through real estate. That's where I already said that. Now, one of the negative possible manifestations of Taurus when on the 4th house cusp is a tendency to get stuck in a rut with respect to your living situation. You could also cling too tightly to certain values and standards, even when they do not serve you any longer. Another negative manifestation of Taurus on the 4th is hoarding tendencies. It may not be easy to part with things that you perceive to be of value, especially things that are of a sentimental value because Venus is in Capricorn. However, that Capricorn energy influencing the 4th house will cause you to want to be very organized. So that's going to help combat the hoarding tendencies. Now, you could be also very guarded when it comes to your personal space. Privacy is very important to you. The value system of your father is a major theme. Money is a major theme as well. Self-esteem is directly tied to the influence that your father wielded in your life because the 4th house pertains to him. And this could be good or for bad. So here's your 4th house again. As you can see, there's no planets occupying that 4th house, but that doesn't mean that the 4th house isn't significant. And as you see, you also have Gemini beginning in your 4th house. And Gemini can deal, when related to the 4th house, can deal with moving around quite a bit. So you could do that several times in your adult life. Also, that can deal with having more than one home. And at some point, you might have, maybe your half sister might need a place to live one day. I don't know how, keen you're going to be on that one though. Now, Gemini in the 4th can also deal with an issue with windows in your home. It can also deal with an issue with getting proper ventilation as well. That could be a problem. And there could be a point where you have to spend at least one night in your car because of being displaced from your home or falling on hard times or whatever with that Gemini in the 4th. Yeah. Now, let's say that you got with a Taurus or a Gemini that falls into your 4th house. They could be almost like a kindred spirit. You might feel like they're almost like family. There could be this sense of familiarity, but they could also be too close for comfort. These are also people that will move in very easily and quickly with you. Like, as soon as the relationship begins, they could be talking about living together and stuff like that. And that could be problematic, of course. Also, having a Taurus or Gemini that falls into your 4th house, they could be violating your privacy. If you saw my last live stream, and I believe you did because I think you left a comment, I talk about, because I got Taurus on my 4th too. So I talk about when I got with that Taurus, when I was seeing him, he violated my privacy a few times. Was all up in my journal, reading all my dirty laundry and all types of stuff. I was like, damn. So again, Taurus, those born after the 17th day of Taurus season, and those that are born within the first 2 weeks or the first 10 days of Gemini season, they could be really good, like close, intimate connection, again, living together. But don't be surprised if they're all up in your business, all up your ass. And these could be signs that are hard to get rid of. Like when you're done with them, they might keep coming back. 5th house. So you got the 10th degree of Gemini on the 5th house cusp. The 10th degree of Gemini can manifest as follows: cycles of ups and downs with respect to love, sex, and romance. Attracting lovers who will ride on the wings of your success. I like to call them sack chasers. That's an old school term. And free riders. So you could attract a free rider or a sack chaser. Attracting slick talkers. Also attracting lovers or love interests who are witty, fickle, and they could be duplicitous. Basically, Gemini, dark-sided Gemini. Also, you could take much pride in possessing a wide range of knowledge. Writing is your claim to fame because the 5th house deals with your claim to fame. So writing, that's your claim to fame right there, especially with Mercury being in your 1st house. Children experience through sister. So your half sister had those children and you were only 6 years old when you became an uncle, I believe you said. So becoming an uncle when you were a child. But again, because Gemini deals with siblings and relatives, that could be how you have experience with children if you don't have any of your own. Also, this can produce a love for certain brands of cars. It can also produce risk involving cars. So again, that car theme resurfaces again with Gemini on the 5th, especially because Mercury is squaring the nodes. So you could risk, or like there could be risk associated with cars, especially when you identify too much with them or become too attached. Also, Gemini on the 5th house cusp can produce conflicting feelings about a love interest. Gemini on the 5th can sometimes make it hard to feel at all due to the cerebral nature of this sign. So again, this is pointing to being too much in your head, just like I said with that 3rd house south node. So this is a big reason why you're still a virgin. Regarding self-expression, Gemini on the 5th house cusp is indicative of displaying two distinct identities, one of which may not be so agreeable. Mercury is in Aquarius, which can cause you to be quite unpredictable in terms of your expression. When it comes to love, certainty is often lacking. With Mercury in the 1st, you may even not be certain of how you feel from day to day. Also, you can be quite fickle when it comes to your affections. Basically, your affections change like the weather, or you could say you run hot and cold. You could also attract a love interest that runs hot and cold. Also, Gemini in the 5th can manifest as being in love with two people at the same time. Regarding children, Gemini on the 5th house cusp is indicative of having at least two of them, or a child could be like your twin in some ways. I know you mentioned the thought of becoming a foster parent. So with Gemini on the 5th, you might end up having more than one foster child. Gemini, when coloring the 5th house, is also indicative of children being one of your main challenges in terms of your daily life if you decide to have them. So you need to think long and hard about having children, even when it comes to fostering them, because Mercury is squaring those nodes. You can expect a lot of back talk having Gemini on the 5th when it comes to children. Gemini on the 5th house cusp also means that children will learn a lot from you and vice versa. It also means that you are very concerned about their education. There's the possibility of conflicts with teachers and school administrators. Mercury in Aquarius as ruler of the 5th house can produce unusual circumstances involving children. It explains why you became an uncle at such a young age. High chance of fostering a child who has challenges with learning and mental health, since Mercury is squaring the nodes. So again, if you decide to care for a foster child, know that it will probably come with significant challenges, but this might be part of your purpose. So I'm not saying don't become a foster parent. Just know that it's probably going to come with some serious challenges, especially with the child's education because of that Gemini influence. Mercury, ruler of the 5th house, is in Aquarius and in the 1st, and that is indicator for homosexuality. So that's one of the indicators in your chart that points to you being gay. And this can also result in being detached, or where you display indifference towards love. Also where you're lacking passion, but that's where the men that you deal with come into play, because you got that Mars and Leo in the 7th. Also, you may need a lover who is a near copy or clone of yourself in terms of mindset, and that's because Mercury's in the 1st house. And you could be a bit of an intellectual snob, and that could be part of the reason why you have a hard time in the dating department. Friends with benefits is a manifestation of Gemini on the 5th with Mercury in Aquarius. Also, self-love is very important, and I already mentioned that with the sun being in the 1st house. Lover develops a sense of entitlement towards you. That's possible. Also, disrespect could be a major issue, and objectification could be another issue as well, where you are objectifying love interest or they're objectifying you. More than likely, they will be objectifying you. So here's your chart again. Here's your 5th house. So Geminis that fall into your 5th house, and it'll be most of them, since you have a good 20 degrees of Gemini in your 5th house. They could be some of your best lovers. They could really help to boost your confidence. They could really help to express yourself better. They could even be part of the subject matter for your books. Also, Geminis that fall into your 5th house, one of them could be the love of your life. And one of them could be one of your first sexual experiences, or you could have somebody that has energy in Gemini, like they could be a Gemini rising, and you could lose your virginity to them. So Gemini in the fifth house is good because, that's like you wanting to have a lover where y'all have that strong mental connection. But then again, that could get you into trouble because you got that third house south node. So you could attract a love interest that just tells you what you want to hear, but they could be two-faced because of that Gemini influence. So keep that in mind. Also, when you have a person's sun fall into your fifth house, there could be an issue with them basically usurping your free will. Like you may feel like you can't exercise your free will when in a situation with somebody that falls into your fifth house. And also, they could be exerting too much of their will upon you. And this is another placement where you might feel like you are too responsible for their happiness, or they might be dependent upon you too much for their happiness. Moving along. Sixth house. Now, the sixth house begins at 59 minutes of Cancer. So 1 minute, and you would have had Leo. I mean, you would have had the first degree of Cancer on that sixth house cusp. But the way you were born at the time you were born, it ended up being the 59-minute of Cancer. And of course, this is using a Placidus house system. So the 0 degree of Cancer, even though it's 59 minutes, this is considered to be the Aries point of Cancer. The 0 degree of any cardinal sign is known as the Aries point, and it's very significant because it can produce circumstances that are brought about by external factors, fated events. Challenges brought on by fated events and external factors, like I said, and this is going to be dealing with Cancer themes. Challenges with being integrated into family unit. That's because this degree is on the sixth house cusp, and sixth house is about integration. Challenges with mother, because Cancer rules mothers, and this could have started in utero, but also dealing with her living with you, because you seem kind of torn about that. Challenges with home, especially in terms of repairs. So you could live in a home that's in constant need of repair or frequent need of repair. Challenges with the stomach, chest, pancreas, because Cancer rules these areas of the body. Challenges with food and diet. Cancer, when on the sixth house cusp, will force you to acquire domestic and or parenting skills. So for instance, if you become a foster parent or decide to become a foster parent, you're going to have to take some parenting classes. I actually used to work in the foster care system, and I used to be the one that would teach those parenting classes. And I remember there was actually a black gay couple, males. They were in one of my foster parent classes. So that was interesting because they wanted to adopt a child. Not adopt, they wanted to become foster parents of a child. So it's interesting that, I have experience working in the foster care system, and we have some of the same energy in our charts, and where you are interested in becoming a foster parent. As you could tell, I'm kind of losing my momentum, but it's all good because we're at the sixth house, and I'm going to take an extended break before I get into part 2, where we're going to be talking about your 7th through your 12th house. Now, Cancer on the sixth house cusp is indicative of being integrated into a family unit that differs from your immediate family. So at some point, it could be your partner's family that you become integrated into. And that's very possible because you also have Cancer on your 7th house cusp. So your partner's family could become like your own second family. Now, women will be one of your main sources of help and instruction. And with me being a woman, I would say that I'm included. Now, mother may be in need of your help, and that's very true because you're helping your mother out right now. Now, since the sixth house pertains to sickness, it becomes a reoccurring theme with respect to your family. Now, with Cancer being on the sixth house cusp, your digestive health is highlighted.
There is a chance for stomach disorders such as ulcers and food allergies. You may also be neurotic when it comes to your food choices. Now, we already know what's going on with you with the Crohn's disease, so that very much is dealing with cancer being on your sixth house cusp. And basically, I'm saying basically, but cancer is spanning your whole sixth house, as I'll show you when I pull up your chart again. Regarding work, Cancer on the sixth house cusp can manifest as opportunities to work from home. So the working from home is a major theme in your chart. And the moon being in Capricorn reinforces the possibility of working from home. And like I said, because of this current ether crisis, you might be working from home now. Now, you need to perform work that has personal significance, or you won't last long, or you won't be very effective. So, working in the insurance industry, if that's not personally significant to you, you might burn out quickly. And it makes sense because you are already thinking about transitioning into human resources. Receiving help from well-seasoned and trusted psychics, clairvoyants, and other spiritual workers, since the moon is conjoined to the 12th house cusp. Moon ruler of the sixth house at 0° Capricorn in the 11th. So the moon is at the Aries point of Capricorn. So you have the Aries point, prominent in your chart through 2 house cusps and also the moon. Very interesting, and it's very telling with respect to your health profile. Now, your stomach constantly being empty, leading to being underweight, that's dealing with the moon being at the Aries point of Capricorn, because Capricorn will take weight off you. Capricorn is the sign of deprivation and also starvation. Can produce serious health problems involving the stomach, especially in terms of malnutrition. Basically, we're just going over some of the same things that you already know about in your life with the Crohn's disease, and also not feeling integrated in the family unit, because that Capricorn moon it's just not conducive to family because it's the opposite sign of Cancer. And with the moon being so close to the 12th house, that's again pointing to you feeling like an outcast. May feel like the black sheep of the family or an outcast. Black sheep is coming from the Capricorn influence. In danger of being homeless at some point, mainly because Cancer is spanning that whole sixth house. That's very much like having the moon in Virgo. And Virgo moon individuals are prone to becoming homeless at some point in their life, or where you just need help in terms of a place to live. So you might be in that situation at some point. And with the moon being conjoined to that 12th house cusp, yes, very, very much so, you are at risk of being homeless at some point. Problems with the root, and I have experienced being homeless as well. Hold up, let me go back. So I have experienced being homeless, but not where I was living on the street, but where I had to depend upon people for a place to live. And you might find yourself in that situation. So while you're helping your mom out right now, because I was in a similar situation where I was helping out family, and this was before I had my experience where I needed help. So you could get on your high horse when you're helping someone out in terms of a place to live, but know that the script can always be flipped at some point, and you may be in need of a place to live, and you may have to depend on somebody at some point. So always keep that in mind. Like when your mom starts to get on your nerves with her living with you and stuff, keep that in mind that at some point you might either have to live with her as an adult, or you might have to live with somebody because you're down and out. You ran into some situation with your living situation. Problems with the roof or structure of a home because the moon is in Capricorn. Problems with drafts, cracks, and ceilings. Now, the Capricorn moon can result in living in a home that's rather old. I've lived in some old homes when I lived in Philly, and they definitely had problems with like drafts and cracks and problems with the ceiling and all types of stuff. Now, here's an aspect that's very much associated with your health, which is why I included it instead of putting it where the moon is, dealing with that 11th house, because your moon's in the 11th. So this is one of the aspects that points to Crohn's disease and how it created an empty stomach.
or, the involuntary starvation where you couldn't keep food down. Chiron being in the 8th house, that's contributing to the vomiting. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Just having the moon in Capricorn alone can produce vitamin and mineral deficiencies, not feeling well integrated in your family. So again, with that moon square Chiron, because Chiron's in Virgo, also this can manifest as a dysfunctional family unit. The anguish that you experience with helping out your mother, trust issues, challenges with getting close to people, problems with a female boss, possibility of problems with housing, especially repairs such as plumbing, hot water heater, garbage disposal, etc. And that's because Chiron is in the 8th house. Now, as you can already see, I'm like being redundant in some areas, but that's just how your natal chart works. There will be things in your chart that just reinforces themes that are in your chart. So if I'm starting to sound redundant at this point, that's because we're getting deeper into your chart. We're already at the 6th house. So, everything's interrelated when it comes to your chart. So that's why I might start sounding redundant from this point on. And here is your chart right here. So here's your 6th house. As you can see, Cancer is spanning that entire 6th house. So health problems involving your stomach and food, major theme, but also the challenges with home, challenges with your mother, major themes in your life. And again, that theme of working from home is major because Cancer is spanning that whole 6th house. Now you might have some coworkers that are Cancer suns, or they have significant energy in Cancer. Now, if you were to get with a Cancer sun, most of them are going to fall into your 6th house, except save for a few of them. Now, with that being said, you want to be careful of getting with a Cancer that falls into your 6th house because they're going to double as a helpmate. So it could be a good thing in terms of them helping you out, but more than likely, you're going to be the one helping them out all the time. They could be very needy for your help. They could also have mental health issues if they fall into your 6th house. So if we're talking about a Cancer sun that falls into your 6th house, that could be very stressful. So you want to think twice about getting with any Cancers. Even if you get with a Cancer that is born during the last week of Cancer season, he falls into your 7th house. He could have Mercury in Cancer and that be in your 6th house, and that can still be problematic. I would just typically stay away from anybody that's fallen into your 6th house. So that just would include most Cancers. And also, if you get with a Cancer who falls into your 6th house, they could end up getting sick, and you may feel the need to play the role of their nurse. So keep that in mind. All right, so this concludes part 1 of your natal chart reading, and I will return with part 2. So just stay tuned for that. And let me know if you have any questions, of course. All right, so I'm going to take an extended break and I'll be back with part 2. Peace and many blessings.